The most frustrating Giant, I think.
Can we guess?
Go ahead.
Tyler Rogers.
No, because I don't expect much anymore. Like, to me, that's a gimmick. It's a gimmick delivery with no stuff on it, and I think it's tough to survive with no stuff. The only thing he's good at is not giving up the home run, but he gets killed on more seeing eye singles than I think any guy in the first half, usually does. Camilo Duvall. To me, Camilo Duvall is the frustrating, because he's having these 40 pitch outings where he's just not. He's wasting way too many pitches, which burns him for the rest of the series, and he's got gas. I mean, he throws 101 easy with a slider that I know he wants to throw more. Sometimes I think he just throws it way too much.
Oh, he does.
And
he's in love with the slider.
And, a lot of people are like, well, if you look statistically, it's his best pitch and all this. Dude, forget the math. Use your eyes. He's an easy 102 with movement. And I'm surprised he doesn't throw that more.
He doesn't trust it. He doesn't trust the fastball. And maybe he's not that good at spotting it. But yeah, to me, for a guy who throws 101 and you're going slider. I mean, he throws a ton of sliders. So that's frustrating, but it's weird. It's just their pen. If it depends what day you catch him. Some days Dominic Leone, by the way, it's Leone, AJ Pierzynski, not Leone.
Oh, is he putting on
he's going Leone,
Hardy?
The Leone. AJ also dropped a GD on the broadcast, then followed it up with a darn. Threw in a darn there after he threw the GD out there.
Did he hit any former Giants trainer in the nuts?
Yeah, Stan Conti was nowhere near, but if he was, he would have probably gotten a stray. No, I mean, the thing with the Giants pen is that they're inconsistent guy to guy. Rogers looks good, Rogers looks bad. Leone looks good, Leone looks bad. Littell looks good, Littell looks bad. I mean, Brebbia has probably been the most consistent guy, probably. But also there's just like it's a parade of guys. I mean, if the pitcher's pitching well, you still get 5 relievers coming out. It's hard to win that way. It's like trying to gamble, and all you're doing is trying to go for 3 and 4 team parlays. It's hard to hit 4 games, and it's hard to hit a game where you hit 4 relievers and they all do their job.
Do you think Carlos Rodon is happy? Do you think he's already talking to his agent about, I'm definitely going to exercise that player option. I'm going to be back with the Giants?
Well, I'm glad that he made the All-Star team eventually. I
am too.
As far as, because he was, I think he lead the National League in WAR.
Second in strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's been incredible. His wife was really hacked off that he didn't make the All-Star team. So I don't know how he feels, but I didn't like the fact that Carlos Rodon is saying that the Giants need to be fired up. I mean, that's Gabe Kapler. That's Gabe Kapler's job. Try to fire up the team, not your starting pitcher. And Wood, that's a little bothersome that guys like Wood and Rodon, because there's such a lack of leadership on this team, they're the voice of the team. Guys that didn't come up in the system, aren't everyday guys, and have been in the organization for a blink of an eye relatively, and they're stepping up. That should either be Crawford or Belt or Longoria. But what happens is if you don't perform, you can't talk.
I know that every single decision that is basically made in baseball now is about asset protection. I mean, that's the way starters are managed. That's the way players. It's just this guy represents a line on our spreadsheet, and we're going to protect this line on our spreadsheet more than this line because it's down here. This line up here, we really got to protect them. If I were the Giants, I would. Look, I'm not running them ragged the way that the Brewers, when they picked up CC Sabathia, were just like, okay, so you're going to go 135 pitches because we know that you're not going to be back with us. But if I were the Giants, I wouldn't worry about asset protection for Carlos Rodon, and I'd be looking to him get through 7 or 8 every single start. Just, unless he gets, anything north of 110 pitches these days is officially, all right, let's, get somebody up in the pen just in case. But if he's cruising, if he's feeling good, because no matter how much you do or don't pitch him, I don't think that there is anything to tell you that, okay, the injury's about to happen. Like, to me, one of the ultimate lies that baseball and all sports has really told itself is that they can predict when the injury's coming. If you could, no one would ever get injured. So you can't, right? You can't. And if I were the Giants, I would start thinking about it really doesn't matter what Carlos is going to be, what will be left of him next year, because he might be out of here anyways. I would just pitch him, not until the wheels fell off, but I would be asking him to go deep, 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 and just not be, pulling 89 pitches. It's the end of the inning. We're going to get him out of there. No, keep him out there. Keep him going.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this both ways. What's the plan? Are you planning on keeping him, or are you planning on hawking him? Because if you traded him, you probably
they're not going to sell him. He's not going to.
Well, they're not a selling type team anyway, because they don't like the message it sends. And then if they keep adding playoff teams in the National League, the Giants may never sell again, right? I mean, I don't think they're not going to fall out of it in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
At no point in time are the San Francisco Giants going to become the 110 loss track Cincinnati Reds. Like, they'll never be that bad.
But if somebody comes to you and says, we'll give you a top tier prospect, like a number one guy for Carlos Rodon, how do you turn that down? Or if you're the Giants, you're going to be, just because you won a World Series once out of the wild card spot, do you not entertain any calls from contenders saying we'll give you a top guy? Because there are teams that, I saw it in the futures game. There were a couple guys mentioned in that futures game who got dealt. Basically, they got dealt from one team to another team at the deadline. And if you could get some foundation piece guy who's going to be a star for your team, for a guy who you have under contract just for one more year, who's had arm problems virtually every year of his entire career, man, that would be hard to pass up. It was Javi Baez. Okay. Javi Baez got dealt from the Cubs to the Mets?
Yeah.
And the Mets sent to the Cubs this guy, Pete Crow Armstrong, who was in this futures game. Now he's the Cubs future center fielder, and he's a stud. He's a 300 hitter. And it's like, wait a second. That guy could patrol Wrigley Field center field for the next 15 years, and you got him for Javi Baez, who was a free agent at the end of the year.
I just had a, Jerome Walton flashback. Damon and Ratto, like I said, we are brought to you by BMW Fairfield, now open in the Fairfield Auto Mall. Visit bmwfairfield.com today to book your visit. Larry Krueger in all week for Ray. And look, here's what I think is the best question I got for you all day when I was thinking about, I want to ask this to Larry when I get in.
This should be good.
Who do you think, because I believe you believe.
The children are our future.
Teach them well. Let them lead the way. I think you believe in momentum as far as hitters go. Like, today's hot hitter, the guy who goes 3 for 4 today, should probably be in the lineup tomorrow.
Play the freaking hot hand.
Right. Now,
that's what managing is.
Right. I believe that too. I also believe managing is knowing when to make that right substitution. And the right substitution isn't any single time there's a chance to make a substitution, I think I'm going to make a substitution. Here's the best question I came up with.
Whose voice was that? Was that?
No, I don't know. That was no one's voice.
Okay. All right. Wasn't sure.
Who'd you think it was?
Thought maybe that was like your Kapler, maybe?
No. My Gabe Kapler would be way down here.
Okay. Sound a little bit like the late Ralph Barbieri, maybe slightly. Anytime there's a neurotic statement.
If you want to have some memories, Larry, we can do that too.
And it's all meant in love, by the way, if you're a Ralph fan.
Of course. There's nothing but homage.
You're so cute, Craig. They brought me up to Calgary. It was right behind the glass. You got to go to Toontown if you're at Disneyland.
Here's the big question.
Yes. We digress.
Who does more to depress the rhythm of Giants hitters? Opposing pitchers or Gabe Kapler?
I'm done guessing with Kapler. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get what he does. I don't get it. They won 107 last year. So last year he's a genius. This year they're close to 500. So maybe he's not as smart this year. And
by the way, Kapler, when I'm it's not just Kapler, because this is not all Kapler's hand on the switch.
No, but he plays a ton of lefty-righty games.
No, but he's being told what to do from on high. There's no doubt about that.
I think that's a safe assumption. That's a safe assumption. We don't have any proof of that.
What's doing more to depress the momentum of, like we say, a lineup that puts up 12 runs one day, 1 run the next day? Who does more to depress that momentum? The other team's pitchers, change-ups galore, or the decisions to just play mix and match every single chance you get to mix and match.
Yeah, I would say I'd lean more towards Kapler, and I like Kapler. I think he's smart.
I don't dislike them, and I don't dislike the philosophy that they're trying to embrace. You know, when your entire team is made up of a lot of platoons and a lot of mixing and matching and things are going well, it feels like everybody's got a hand in the middle. Feels like everybody's pulling on the rope the same way. Feels like, man, we got a whole baseball team. Like they got 9 guys. We got a whole baseball team.
Look at our depth.
Exactly. When everything's going right, it's really easy to like all of these decisions. And we can't make a wrong decision. Every single time Darren Ruff is a pinch hitter, he's hit a home run. And oh my God, you know, when everything's going great, even well, it feels good. When it starts to not go well, to just embrace that and never come off of it, that's when it gets just painful, I think, to watch.
I just don't like that so many of the decisions seem like they're 2:30 in the afternoon decisions and not 8:30 at night in the game decisions. Brandon Belt, give you an example. Brandon Belt the other day, Giants had like 3 hits. He hit a titanic, majestic ball that bounced off of the
top of the arch.
Top of the arch and popped back in the air.
Right. But home run anywhere else.
And it was. Then the announcer said this would have been a home run in every single ballpark in the majors and the minors. They're like, home run, pinch hit for next at bat.
Yeah.
And as he's telling the story in the postgame, Kapler, I can just see Belt's eyes rolling. You know, and I wasn't even there. It's like, dude, I'm 3 for 3. It took me a while to get it rolling. Now I'm rolling. I'm 3 for 3. I almost parked one into the cove, and now I'm coming out. I mean, and then Jock Peterson, you're pinch hitting Jock Peterson for Austin Slater in the 5th inning, and then all of a sudden Slater's coming up. Who's got better numbers against lefties? Well, actually, Peterson had a better number against lefties than Slater at that point. So, I mean, I don't. To me, playing lefty righty every single time. If you're just going to do that, what do I need you for? You know, what do I need you for if you're just going to play lefty righty every single matchup? I'd like to see a little bit more gut and a little less stat sheet from Kapler. I'd like to, and he's done it at times.
More baseball, less math.
He did it when he went to Sammy Long, when he pulled Doval. He's like, hey, you know what? I don't think Doval's going to get it done. I think Sammy with the changeup, he had the thought process. He was looking at the game. He was evaluating it.
Was it in Arizona or San Diego?
It was the 9th inning about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
And he pulled Doval for Long. Long got the out. So
right.
So and it was one of those moves where it wasn't a 3:00 in the afternoon move. It was like, I'm watching this now, and this is what I think is the right move. I'm doing it. I want to see a little bit more of that. By the way, back to Doval, you know, the stuff aside, what also bothers me about him is you can tell he doesn't want the ball unless there's a save situation on the line. He doesn't want to be. He's not here for your 7th inning. He is not here for a 5-run lead. That guy already thinks he's Trevor Hoffman and only wants to come into the situation that matters. Well, he's smart, man. He knows how he's going to be paid. He knows it's all about being compensated, right? At the end of the day, he wants to be compensated.
888-957-9570. Who do you think, good audience, does more to depress the rhythm of Giants hitters, opposing pitchers, or the decisions that come down on high from Farhan to Kapler? By the way, this is Skills in Vallejo. Skills, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Hey, Damon. Hey, Larry. Good to hear you back on the air again, Larry. Hope you're with 95.7 for many years to come, if that's what you want to do.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
I mean, we might not want to do it. We'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, seriously.
Guys, be nice to Larry so he doesn't want to go anywhere. He's got a lot of fans here in the Bay Area. But I want to ask...
Checks in the mail.
Quick, I can use it. I want to ask real quick, Damon and Larry, your opinion on. I'm going to be in Southern California later this week, and I'm going to have a chance to see the Giants and the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, and I want to know if you think I'm a fat flaming idiot for going there, for wanting to go there in my full Giants gear, and I also want to agree with you on Tyler Rogers, and I also want to say go Giants.
Wait, before you hang up, Skills, I got a very important question.
Where are you sitting?
Where are you sitting?
That I haven't determined that yet, but it'll probably be somewhere in down by the left field foul line somewhere.
Okay.
Rock your gear, man.
Here's
Rock
the thing.
your gear.
You're
It's not the LA Coliseum and Raiders,
Chargers.
Todd Marinovich's first start, 1990.
I would say you're cool with a hat. You're doubling down if you're going to rock jersey too. And at that point, it's just about being respectful and minding your own manners. Remember where you are, keep your head on a swivel, don't pop off too much, but enjoy yourself. And here's the thing, the vast majority of baseball fans that I've ever seen in any stadium, including Philadelphia, I swear to, because baseball is not the NFL. It's not. Most baseball fans are welcoming. Most baseball fans are welcoming of even out-of-town opponents, even rivals. They really are, for the most part.
Are they welcoming, or is there just not that much on the line in one baseball game? You know what I mean?
That has a lot to do with it as well.
Right.
Right. In the bleachers, mind your P's and Q's. In the bleachers, people get drunk. People might be going to Scrapple. So in the bleachers, you mind your P's and Q's. But down the left field line, you're all right.
I say rock your colors. Wear what you got to wear. What comes your way comes your way. You can always diffuse it. But you saw that Ranger fan who dropped the Lightning fan in the subway. Did you see that on the way out of Stanley Cup? Eastern Conference or no Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was criminal, and nobody did a damn thing. It's an app, but that Lightning fan was, big baller shot caller talking large. Don't be that guy. Just don't be that guy, and you probably won't bring anything on.
The Comcast business text line says, let's not forget Brian Snow. You mean Brian Stowe.
Yeah.
So let's not forget him. And look, that was a one-off that resulted in as bad and as sad a story as you can find coming out of a baseball game. But that does not define Giants and Dodgers fans. I don't think so.
No,
it should.
That was criminal. That was criminal behavior bleeding into a baseball crowd. That's what that was.
In a parking lot, too, not the actual stadium.
Right.
That's the thing. Mind your P's and Q's in the parking lot. Yes. It's the parking lot is where you got to look out more than the actual stadium itself. But look, there's drunk jackasses everywhere. I mean, you could wear a Giants hat to a Mariners game and you say the wrong thing to the wrong guy and you get clocked.
Sure. Where there's zero tradition, zero bad vibes between the two teams.
Right.
Just some random idiot could be anywhere at any time.
I'm interested in seeing Jose Ramirez tonight.
He can hit. Are you talking about Julio Rodriguez?
Yes, Julio Rodriguez. Yeah, not Jose Ramirez. Julio, yes.
Julio Rodriguez for the Mariners. Mariners won 14 in a row going into the break. Talk about a team that didn't want to take the break.
Are the Orioles still cooking?
Yes.
Did they cool off?
Well, they've cooled off a little, I think. But the Orioles are playing pretty good ball. But
dude, the Orioles are looking at the zenith of their last 20 years right now.
No, seriously. Orioles are 8-2 in the last 10.
By the way, what is this? But
they lost their last game.
Dude, you hit the breaking news sounder, right? I mean, we got a breaking news sound. This feels like breaking news. We got breaking Giants baseball news.
A trade, Farhan?
Juan Soto is no, it's not Juan Soto. Let's go ahead.
That wasn't right.
That was me.
That was not right.
Breaking news brought to you by the Beat the Streak podcast. Get an inside edge on how to win the $5.6 million prize every day this baseball season. Listen on Odyssey or wherever you get your podcasts.
I mean, it's really not that big of news. But
oh, no.
The Giants are acquiring lefty Alex Young from the Guardians for cash considerations. Over the last 2 seasons, Young has appeared in 11 games with Cleveland. He had an ERA over 7.5, giving up 9 earned runs over 10 2/3 innings. But before Cleveland, he played 2.5 seasons in Arizona. So he is familiar with the division. And look, the only thing that I can tell you that Farhan totally is superior at all times are these ho-hum, didn't think twice of it pickups. Farhan's great on the margins. He's really good at picking through the rotten produce to, find the peach that isn't about, it's not a standout peach, but but you wouldn't want to just eat it raw, but in a pie, all of a sudden this peach that everybody's passing on, we can put it in our pie and it tastes just fine. He's good at putting together the end of the ensemble. So we'll see, lefty Alex Young from the Guardians for cash considerations. There you go.
There you go. It wouldn't be a day if it wasn't a giant trade. He's 28. He's a 28-year-old lefty. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll say this. You're right about Farhan. His moves on the margins, he makes guys like us or any fan go to the Google like twice a week.
Right.
Like you're Googling guys. Why? Because the same way he picked up Yaz and the same way he picked up Dominic Leone, not Leone, to AJ Pierzynski. And when he gets these guys, that trade he made last week for Colton Welker, who's a legitimate third base prospect who can hit a bunch of doubles for Colorado, was once their like 5th or 6th rated prospect. He's rehabbing an injury. So he pulled the same move that he pulled with Luis Gonzalez, and they're going to pay him during the injury. Watch Colton Welker in a year from now be a contributor of significance. So some of his moves on the margins are,
I mean, here the funny thing is, even the moves and the player that doesn't do enough for the Giants to keep on earning his at bats moves on, and there's a major leaguer there. I mean, the Taylor Connor Joe is one that I'm going to remember for a long time. I mean, it felt funny that he was an opening day starter for the Giants, and it obviously did not work out. But then he goes and turns into a really good hitter. Well, another situation.
Unfortunately for the Giants, he was facing the pitcher when the pitch came. Do you remember that? Remember his batting stance?
Yeah.
I mean, he isn't hit like that anymore. Now he's like, regular hitter. But when he was with the Giants, he literally was facing the pitcher.
See, because you stand during the show, you just demonstrated that perfectly. I feel like I'm watching batting stance guy.
Thank you.
Very nice job. We do have ourselves a home run derby tonight. We'll talk about the home run derby, where it used to be great, where it really isn't anymore. We got an awful lot to get into. Damon, Farhan loves a good discount. Again, dude, he can shop at Odd Lots. He really can. He can find the decent off-brand. Oh, what is this? Armuni? Okay, but it looks good, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick this up.
Armuni.
Yeah, it's Armuni. It's not Armani. It's
not Armani, but it's really close.
It's an Armuni. It looks pretty good. I can see their logo. It's a little different.
It's not an Izod, but it's a Latigre. I didn't get it at Macy's, but next door at Mervin's. Do you guys remember Mervin's?
We had our Mervin's used to be called Caldors on the East Coast. If you and your mom were walking around Caldors, you knew Dad had a rough year.
Some kid's got a polo shirt. You got what do you got?
Polio.
It's a similar shirt.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah.
888-957-9570. We got more on the All-Star game, the starters.
Yeah, that wasn't right.
That wasn't right. But look, it's been stamped out. So
you're going to get hit by a bus on the way out of here.
Probably. Daily. We have an awful lot to get into. I know Lucas was climbing up the guest tree, seeing if he can pull on any branch. But, if it doesn't happen, we're just going to keep talking sports. It's what we're going to do here on 95.7 The Game. We are brought to you by Fremont Bank. Full service banking, no compromises.
I'm Erin Hawksworth, here to help you beat the books with BetQL. As MLB heads into All-Star Week, let's dive into some.
Damon and Ratto with Larry Krueger in today and this week with Ray on vacation. Again, if you're looking for more Giants talk, just check out Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys. Mark Willard, Joe Shasky. Check it out on the Odyssey app, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We have just been told Chris Russell, who is a broadcaster on the Team 980 in D.C., he is Mr. Washington Nationals, and he is going to be joining us talking about how Juan Soto, about as valuable a property, that sounds awful. He's a young man, but he's about as valuable an entity.
Asset.
An asset, thank you. A valuable an entity, an asset as you can find. He is basically the 23-year-old sexy Ted Williams. And over the weekend, he turned down a staggering amount of money, which basically was a little bit of a message, I think, to the Washington Nationals, Larry. Like, I really don't want to play for you very much longer when you turn down a $440 million deal. It was over 15 years. And, you know, I mean, I don't care how good you are, and he's great, but it takes some real gumption to say no to the largest deal in the history of Major League Baseball. And I guess it's all centered around the fact that he really didn't like the annual average value of the deal, which spread over 15 years. I mean, that is a level of security that should make you almost uninterested in your annual average value. What it is a major league contract, which means every single solitary penny is guaranteed. $440 million? No, thank you. Whoa.
Well, and the backstory here, Damon, is that Soto noticed when the Nats gave Scherzer that huge lump sum of money for 2 years, and they offered Soto that same amount of money for more than 2 years, and he wants the Scherzer average annual. That's why they're talking average annual there, because Scherzer got whatever Scherzer got. He got some ridiculous amount of money, record-setting money. But I mean,
Soto, for a guy who plays every 5 days.
Exactly. Soto's turned down 13 years, $350. That was prior to the lockout, and he just turned down 15 years, $440. So he essentially is telling all Nationals, people from Mike Rizzo down to the last fan that, hey, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So move me if you can. And what I heard was that, and I was listening to Willard actually this morning, and Willard mentioned the guy they had on from DC basically said that, it was like unfathomable that they would move him before the actual deadline in season, that this would be an off-season deal. But now that guy's saying, hey, you know what? It actually could happen between now and the deadline. So that makes the story like front and center. Got to talk about it, got to analyze it, got to break it down.
Grant Paulson on Willard and Dibs.
So I was 100% adamant when I saw the Rosenthal report and first made a couple calls to Nats people that this would not happen now. This would be something that they really get hot and heavy on in the off season, try to make it work then, maybe even a year from now at the deadline next season. I now believe they're going to try to do everything they can to make it happen now. I really believe that. And it's stunning, and just saying it out loud is a weird thing. It's happened quickly. But they feel like every day closer to free agency, the value goes down, which is fair. And they think that the idea of having 3 potential runs with him for a contender instead of 2 is invaluable. And that's where you get the mid-market, the small market teams playing this game.
I mean, is it an illusion of contention that would make? I mean, you have to trade nothing less than the stars and the moon to get him.
Yes. And
I mean, honestly, and
it's shocking that he's even available.
Well, and this is something that I think we need to talk about, because we're really not going to spend any time talking about him on the Giants, because I just don't feel like Giants ownership is committed to that level of financial commitment to anyone right now.
You sure about that?
Well,
they just won 107 and their attendance is flat as hell.
Okay, but do it before I believe it. Like sign your big free agent, not release a story that you finished second once again.
Right. Don't be a stalking horse for somebody else.
Exactly. Show me I'm tired about the labor pain. Show me the baby.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The Soto's going to be a free agent after the 2025 season. So this whole urgency thing does feel a little odd, because I mean, you have him under control for 3 more years. I mean, he's not even a free agent, but he is arbitration eligible, and that's what they want to get out of. I mean, especially with the deal that Aaron Judge is just looking at. I think that's why they want to get out here. Honestly, I don't think the Giants have enough. I don't think the Giants have a farm. I don't think the Giants even have a shot to put together a deal for the Washington Nationals to lean in and be like, yeah, the Giants gave us the best offer out there. If other teams start going, I don't think they have a deep enough farm system. I mean, I think if you mailed the list of the top 10 prospects to Mike Rizzo right now, and you said choose 6 to 8 of them, he'd want to get 9 other teams involved before he decided to take a whole bunch of guys who are still at A-ball.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong on that take, because Giants prospects crap out
all
consistently.
The time. Think about it. I thought I was reading Baggerly today. The last first rounder to really make a difference was Joe Panic. The last second rounder to make a difference, and we could sit here all day and argue, did Nate Shearholtz make a difference? No, but he appeared on the roster.
Good guy, but
right. But I mean, it's a world of Carlos Arroyos who don't work out for them and then go somewhere else and plays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing with the Giants. You got Marco Luciano. He's 20. He's got putting up good numbers in the minor leagues. He's your number 1 prospect.
Can you promote him? Can he get to AA ball and see if he still does it there?
Well, I mean, I'm as skeptical as anybody. I'm with you on the skepticism on that. But he is the kind of prospect the Giants have not had. So he would be your headliner. They just had Kyle Harrison, who pitched at De La Salle a couple years ago. Baseball America ranks Kyle Harrison as the top left-handed pitching prospect in all of Major League Baseball. Throws it up there 97, 98, just gave up 2 titanic bombs over the weekend in the Futures game. Dominguez took him out, the Yankee prospect, dead center. Some guy named Walliner hit one down the line that was like 116 miles an hour off the bat. But you're talking about the top left-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball, and Marco Luciano. Those are your 1 and 2 prospects. So I got to think that any deal they make starts right there. But if I'm the Giants, there is no price tag that makes me go, no. There really isn't. Their prospects fail all the time. And we could have had this discussion years ago about fill in the blank. Kurt Ainsworth, Jerome Williams, Jesse Foppert takes our breath away, and all these guys. I mean, the Giants have had highly rated guys.
Jesse Foppert. Nice ball.
Did I get
nice
Jesse
ball.
Foppert?
Yeah.
I mean, they've had all kinds of guys. Gary Brown was the center fielder of the future. Christian Arroyo was going to be a batting champion. All these guys were going to be awesome. Joey Bart, Bailey. I mean, they get all kinds of guys. Now, they do have a deeper list of prospects. But if I'm Mike Rizzo and Farhan calls, I'm just hanging up. I'm just hanging up on the failure rate of your prospects over the last decade. Your guys going forward might be great, but I ain't taking a chance. I'd rather take LA's guys. I'd rather take almost anybody else besides your prospects. I'd rather take some other team's prospects just on the track record of your prospects over the last 15 to 20 years.
And ultimately, it feels like the financials of getting this deal done are going to come out of 3 different major league cities. Well, 2, because the Yankees and Mets play in the same place, both spend ridiculous money, and it's the Dodgers. I'll give the San Diego Padres all the credit in the world for spending the money that they did, but they're definitely at the end of their we're spending huge money moment in time. They're not going to then, add this guy.
But the Giants are spending $155 million on opening day. They've had a $200 million payroll, so they're $45 million beneath what they have spent in the past. We're talking about past seasons, so they can't say they can't afford this player. And then this is the guy they need right now. The Giants. Is this the worst Giants team of all time? No, they've been tons of worse teams. This might be one of the sleepiest, most boring, hard to get behind, hard to go watch teams that they've ever had. So they need a headliner in the worst way. And, just win and the people will show up. Well, obviously that's not true. You won in 107 last year and your attendance is really, really flat this year. There's other circumstances, gas, the economy, the pandemic. We all know it. But that's their reality. They need some juice, man. They need some reason to go watch. They need some reason to excite people. It's a sleepy product right now, and they don't have an everyday outfielder for the most part. So you put this guy in the lineup every day, and they become infinitely more watchable and infinitely less boring. And to me, it's a show, and it's an expensive show at that. And if you're going to charge $70 to park and $15 a churro or
you
whatever,
got $18 beers domestic.
Yeah, if I'm going to get a crab sandwich and have to put it on layaway, maybe it's time for you to spend some money.
Juan Soto, talking today during All-Star Media, had this to say about how the Nationals basically told him we're not going to trade him, but things have gone different.
I haven't talked to anybody to tell me how that changed or what was the mindset, but a couple of weeks ago they were saying they will never trade me, and now all these things came out. It feels really uncomfortable. You don't know what to trust, but at the end of the day, it's out of my hands of what decision they make.
Well, here's what's changed.
You just turned down $500 million almost.
Right. You just turned down the largest deal in the history of Major League Baseball. Now, hey, when you got a team that is bottoming out like the Nationals are, they probably feel like, yeah, we're putting a pretty good offer in front of him. This shouldn't be the kind of thing that he, rejects. And here comes Scott Boras, by the way. This is something that Lucas just passed on to me, saying that things are definitely heating up on the Soto front down in L.A. Boras, speaking to reporters right now, just said that the negotiations between Juan Soto and the Nationals should be private. They're not anymore. And my client will take that under advisement. Oh boy, Scott Boras. Scott Boras has got a really impressive 50-page dossier to tell you how Barry Zito is going to be the next great pitcher in Major League Baseball. But look, Boras demands top dollar and he gets it all the time. Soto, meanwhile, is like saying all the right things to the media down in LA.
I've been a National since day one. Why I should want to change? I've been here my whole life and my career. I just feel great where I'm at, and whatever the decision they make, I just gonna get comfortable in a couple of days. But at the end of the day, like I say, I don't control any of that. I'm just here to play baseball and play as hard as I can.
And by the way, for those of you who are missing Ray Ratto, you're going to get a little kiss from him at the top of the hour each and every day. Welcome to your 4 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station.
To piggyback off of what Scott Boras...
Was that a one take?
3. Actually, I think that was edited down from a previous thing. Scott Boras, saying that I'm not happy that this has gone public. This is the Washington Nationals making. And here's the deal. If you're a Nationals fan, like Bryce Harper walked away from you for what was huge money at the time. The last thing you want to hear.
Vladdy, if you want to go far back.
Right. The last thing you want is still an Expo. The last thing you want to hear is another guy who's ours doesn't want to be us anymore. So The Nationals putting this out that he just said no to $440 million is something that's got him miffed, because now he's not even going to be, there will be 18% booing him next home at bat. I mean, there'll be a smart 72% who would never do that because you don't want him to leave. But that's going to piss off some crusty East Coast guy who's like, you don't want our 440? Take a hike.
Yeah. Yeah. This could be a big cash offload too. We don't know what the Nationals really want here. Do the Nationals want payroll flexibility? Do they want, because they lost Scherzer, they lost Trey Turner. Last year they made a deal with the Dodgers, but like, if you were willing to take Patrick Corbin,
that's tipping the hand right there. We're just looking to we would like to spend like the Florida Marlins at that point.
If I'm the Giants, I'm taking Patrick Corbin. I might even consider Strasburg. I mean, Strasburg's a $35 million per, and he hasn't pitched in a long time. Corbin, I think, has multiple years left at big bucks, and he's got like a 5 point. He's like a back of the rotation starter at best. But if you're the Giants, take those guys. Take that money. You might be able to diminish what you have to pay prospect wise if you're the team willing to take on the money. The Giants have money. The Giants have a ballpark that's paid off. They've got the Mission Rock project. They're going to be developing the eastern waterfront between the ballpark and Candlestick for the rest of our lives and our children's lives. They have money. The descendants of the owners all have money. We're talking about generational wealth for
right.
5-6 generations.
In the multiple billions.
Nobody's going to care. They own their own ballpark and they're minting money. That I'd like to see the Giants, as a fan of the Giants, use what they have to trade that other teams don't have, which is their wealth as a franchise, to take on Corbin, take on Strasburg, take on those bad contracts, roll the dice. Maybe you can get those guys healthy, and maybe the prospect cost comes down on Soto because you're really willing to, you show up with the checkbook.
Grant Paulson talking about this very subject today on Willard and Dibs.
The Nationals want 5 or 6 of my top guys. I'm not giving up 5 or 6 of my top guys with 6-7 years control to bring someone in to rent for 2.5 seasons. But what if the Nationals attached a terrible contract and that lowered the ask a little bit? That might be, from what I'm hearing, like how they do this. So let's say it's Soto and Patrick Corbin, who's got 2 years of a 6-year, $140 million contract left. He's one of the worst pitchers in the National League at this point. If they add him to the deal to get him off their books, going through an ownership sale, now the 6 or 5 prospects might become 3 or 4 really, really good prospects, and the Corbin off the books is a major part of the deal. So think about that creatively. Like those types of things are what the Nationals are going to try to do. They're trying to reset their entire outfit and bring in great players. It's not just about the prospects.
It's always odd to me, Larry, that when a team is, on the verge of being sold, they think that we need to get this down to the cheapest price possible to lure in the most. Like, to me, what's the point of buying a baseball team that just traded Juan Soto? Like, that's just a bad message to say. I would want Juan Soto if I were going to be the next owner of the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, well, you're thinking like an owner with deep pockets, but then, I agree with you, by the way, because what are you getting? Not only are you buying a team, you're buying a team that now has like their most serious PR problem because they just handed away their blue chip talent at the age of 23. I mean, think about it. We've been watching baseball for decades. When was the last time a player of this caliber at 23 was available via trade? I can't think of one.
No.
Cannot think of one.
No, I mean, you're still under a controllable amount of years, and teams don't walk away from Ted Williams.
Right. They don't.
By the way, his baseball reference page is, you go there, it's kind of ridiculous who he gets compared to. I don't want to just we'll look it up before we get joined by Chris Russell of the Team 980 in DC, who is all over the Nationals. He's going to be joining us here coming up next segment on Damon and Ratto. But this is the situation that Juan Soto's in. He's at the All-Star game. He's got to be excited to be at an All-Star game. You figure that would come with a punch, but he's not getting a single question about, isn't it great to be here in LA? Not one. It's all about the situation now, and he says he feels awkward in this situation.
It feels pretty tough, pretty frustrating. So I try to keep my stuff private. Don't try to throw stuff out there. It feels really bad, but at the end of the day, we just got to keep playing. It don't matter what's happened.
So, I mean, that's right in lockstep with what Bora's saying. Hey, if we kept this private, it would have been a lot better for all involved. Now it feels like Juan Soto can play the "I'm offended by this" card, and I'm not saying he's out there doing it or that his agent told him to do this. I mean, he sounds, pretty legit and how he feels about all this, but he's just saying these are rumors that leave him in an awkward position.
For me right now, I'm just concentrating about baseball. Can't do anything about it. I have my hands tied. I'm just gonna play as hard as I can, play baseball, and forget about anything else. I don't make the decisions. They take the decisions. If they want to make the decisions, I gotta just pack my stuff and go. But if not, I'm gonna keep playing baseball as hard as I can.
Keep playing baseball as hard as you can. When you're playing it right now, you're one of the absolute best. It's so interesting. You're right. I mean, when is the last time somebody like this was available?
In any sport, I can't think of it. Maybe, A-Rod, but he was a free agent. Oh, he got traded from to Texas.
That was a
right?
Texas money dump.
Right. I'll say this about Juan Soto too. It's not a pitcher. It's in a pitching situation. Oh man, you're always like crossing your fingers. Is he going to feel that elbow twinge? All of a sudden he's going to go see some doctor and that's it. When you get an outfielder like Soto, I mean, he's a 23-year-old player. You got a reasonable expectation that he's going to be healthy for the duration of that contract. So I think the risk factor is pretty low.
A lot of people talk about the reason why Kevin Durant hasn't been moved at all is because the Rudy Gobert trade just so screwed up the market as to what the asking. If you're getting 5 firsts for Rudy Gobert, I should be able to get your upper deck for Kevin Durant.
They want 6 firsts for Donovan Mitchell.
Right. It feels like the decision around baseball to start paying, and look, an ace is an ace and aces are special. I get it. But the decision to play a guy who only plays every 5 days, $28 million, $29 million, $30 million. I mean, you're basically looking at $1 million a start. You go ahead and you start thinking like that for positional players. I mean, I read the other day a story about, and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about this week. I have a serious man crush on Shohei Ohtani. I'm ready to declare him the single greatest player in baseball right now, history. He is the greatest player in baseball history right now. And you want to be like, well, he's not Willie Mays. What was Willie Mays' ERA? Give me a break. I mean, that's the thing. This guy
has got to be a two-way player.
He's got a skill set of one. And by the way, the Giants drafted.
Is he better than Ruth?
He dwarfs Ruth. Ruth was a pitcher.
Ruth out-homered the entire league. You do know that.
Right.
Yeah, out-homer. His home run total was greater than that of the rest of the league.
Impressive, no doubt. Okay, so how about this? He's only as good as Babe Ruth, okay. Right? I mean, that's where we are on this guy. And remember, Babe Ruth was good against them white boys, but he never hit a brother like Doc Gooden.
That's right. There was no Josh Gibson.
No,
in the big leagues at that point.
One of the more amazing statistics is that Juan Soto in the last 50 years has the greatest batting average with runners in scoring position. He also is the greatest pitcher over the last 50 years at suppressing run totals with runners in scoring position. I mean, they got any single time you look up a new stat about him, he is literally in a class photo of one person. There is one person who has ever really played like him. And he does. He's even dwarfing. Anyways, the whole point wasn't about how good he is. It's what is he now worth on the open market? So you're paying for a guy who would never be anything less than your number 2 pitcher and never anything other than your 3rd or 4th place hitter. And you're getting them all at the same time. Shohei Ohtani on an open market is easily 63 to 65 million a year was the article that I read.
But there's more risk because of the fact that he's a pitcher.
Right.
And if you lose him, you're essentially losing 2 players off your team. But I'll say this too. Shohei puts people in the seats. I mean, Ohtani's a gate attraction.
No, he's box office.
Would Juan Soto be box office? I think he would, but not on that level. He's not on that level.
No. Well, he's not a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, and it's a different deal. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is almost a borderline. He's not unprecedented, but he's almost unprecedented.
Juan Soto in a Giants uniform is the best San Francisco Giants since
Barry Bonds.
Buster Posey. Yeah. I was going to say, Buster Posey, if you wanted to work a little more recently, but yeah, I mean, this would be an acquisition of a Bonzian level. And I just don't think the Giants would have it in them unless you said, of course, they took, a ridiculous amount of money, threw it at bad contracts around, because I don't think they have a farm system that if I'm Mike Rizzo, I'm just going to say, yeah, there's no doubt your top prospect is definitely a top prospect in baseball, because top prospects in baseball, Larry, are in baseball all the time now. Why are they slow playing these guys?
It's so funny that you're saying that, because I was watching the draft yesterday and I saw somebody on Twitter today say the Major League Baseball draft's the only place where you can hear guys like, he does this like Mays, that like Aaron, this like Ruth.
You'll see him in 4 years.
or you may never hear from him again. Right. But yeah, I mean, the one thing about Soto, and I've heard the best counter that I've heard for, because to me, there's no reason not to go after Soto. Your attendance is flat. Your team is dry. You need it. The Giants come to town. It's bye-bye, baby. I mean, this guy would just be perfect on so many fronts, and he's 23, and I think he's buddies with Crawford. So that's also kind of a positive. But somebody said, you know what? You're going to spend all this and trade your top 4 prospects and maybe take on all this bad money for a guy that's just going to set the walk record because you can't protect him in the lineup, because you got a lineup of Darren Ruffs and Mike Yastrzemski's, and he's just going to be walked, 250 times.
Hey, you put a guy with a 450 on base in this lineup, it officially works better. It's just that simple.
But that is a decent point, in that if they get a guy like Soto, you better find your Jeff Kent. You better find some protection for him.
Austin Slater's in the room, Larry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I forgot. Sorry.
We are brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer. If you don't get a booster, you're nuts. Get a booster shot to protect yourself and your family from COVID. When we come on back, we're going to go to DC to find the latest on the biggest trade rumor really in all sports. I mean, that's, I guess you could say Kevin Durant would be one, but Juan Soto would be 1A if you care about baseball, which we do. We're talking that next year on 95.7 The Game. Larry Krueger in for Ray Ratto this week on Damon and Ratto.
You have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-200-1966. Big Lou is intimate.
on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back, Damon and Ratto, indeed, with Larry Krueger in for Ray today and all this week. We are happy to welcome Chris Russell, known in D.C. as the Rooster on Team 980. And you'd think, boy, he must do the morning show up with the Rooster. Well, middays, which means he can sleep in like a normal human being, which means he won't be exhausted for this conversation. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. It's good to have you. How are you, man?
Damon, Larry, thanks for the intro and for having me. And I wish you guys all the luck in the world having to deal with Matt Nahagian every day. I had to do it for 6 years. Don't know how you guys all do it, but no, just teasing. But yeah, about doing that morning show, no morning show. I mean, that's like 9 a.m. is mid-morning, right? I mean, so it still sort of counts as the morning show, and you got to get up at the butt crack of dawn to get all the way into Washington, D.C. So, I mean, that counts somewhat.
Indeed, it does. And yes, Nahagian definitely our cross to carry now. Thanks for the trade. Thanks for the trade is kind of what we're having you on to talk about, because Juan Soto is a level of talent that simply is not traded from any team that wants to, win baseball games or sell tickets, regardless of where they are in any standings. Even bad teams need good baseball players. And this guy dwarfs the concept of good baseball player. He's 23-year-old, sexy Ted Williams. So what the hell's going on?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, what you said about selling tickets and winning games, they're not doing either. So let's establish that. Okay, they're not selling tickets. They're not winning games. They're the worst winning percentage in all of baseball. What's going on here is a kid who's 23, who's got 2.5 more years of control, is about to get traded because the Lerner family, which has been the longtime owner of the Nationals since they bought the team from Major League Baseball, they did not move the team here from Montreal. They bought the team from Major League Baseball once they were already here, okay? But they've owned them pretty much the whole time. Well, now they're getting out. They've lost a lot of money in commercial real estate and all sorts of business ventures over COVID, as many have. So they want to get out. So they're looking for a new buyer, looking for, they say, possibly new investors, but really it's a new buyer, and they're down to a couple of finalists. So as best I can figure it out, what they're trying to do is say, look, we're going to take every crack we can at settling this, even though we're 2.5 years away from ultimately free agency, because we've been burned, Bryce Harper once, Anthony Rendon twice, by Scott Boras, and playing it out to free agency before. So we want to get this all tied up. On top of that, I strongly believe, I do not know, but I strongly believe whoever the new owners are do not want to be saddled with this humongous black cloud of, oh my God, blood is going to be on our hands if we let Juan Soto go as either a free agent or if we trade him in the first year or so of our ownership. How awful of a way to start a new ownership regime in Washington, D.C. or anywhere if you trade the game's best young left-handed hitter. And you said it at the top, David. He's been compared to Ted Williams, and some of the numbers actually freaking match up. The guy's awesome. Now, he got off to a little bit of a slow start this year, maybe more than a little bit of a slow start. He's been unbelievable the last month. He's just tearing the cover off the ball. The dude is as good of a pure hitter from the left-hand side as you can. He's a pretty good guy. He's not like, one of these prima donna pain in the butts. And the only thing I can figure out is, again, they think the ownership now thinks it's going to affect either the sale price or the sale transaction of the team, and that's why they're drawing such a hard line with 2.5 years to go before free agency.
Rooster, can I call you Rooster?
You can call me whatever you want.
Well, it's funny. The Nationals, it's like the National fans should have a pretty good idea of how kind of, lucky or unlucky sometimes trading for prospects is. It wasn't that long ago that Victor Robles was considered the 1 and Juan Soto was the 1A. So wouldn't that scare the hell out of you if you're trading for prospects? I mean, you couldn't necessarily even handicap the prospects you had in your own system, let alone try to figure out what somebody else has.
It's a great question, and I think it's been a big part of the problem. The fact that Victor Robles, who was considered to be once a five-tool, all-everything player, they would not trade him in the division for, if you guys remember when JT Realmuto was available from the Marlins, Bryce Harper was just aching to get Realmuto on his team. I mean, just aching, and they would not trade him straight up at the time, Victor Robles for Realmuto, which they would do, 10,000 times now because, again, Robles has very much underachieved. And that's been part of the problem with the Nationals is that not only has Robles underachieved, but a guy like Carter Kieboom, who was a top third base prospect, he, A, can't stay healthy, and B, was miserably underachieving when he was given an opportunity. They have not developed players really, again, since Juan Soto. I mean, a little bit with Luis Garcia, this guy, this year, that's a second base shortstop, but that's about it. And they haven't developed big-time pitchers yet to complement their roster, so they're not winning. Again, hence the worst record in baseball. Now, I will say this. They made a pretty good trade, I think. It was an aggressive, bold trade with the Dodgers last year to trade away Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, which I know you guys in San Francisco love, to the Dodgers. And, of course, they got a couple of top prospects in Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz, and I think those guys are going to be fine. I believe you take more shots at the apple, more cracks, at the piñata, if you will, to get more guys in to fill out your farm system and your young talent on your roster, because they don't have enough of either. They don't have enough of the farm system, and they don't have enough young talent. Guys on the worst record team in baseball, they're starting 42-year-old Nelson Cruz. I mean, that's what we're at here, and that's how quickly things have fallen off for the Washington Nationals. Some of that is drafting really low because of all their winning in the last decade, culminating with the 2019 World Championship. I think you guys know something about that and how that can hurt a team long term, right? There's a rebuild associated with that. So you put all of that together and you say, well, if trading him there's no real pure baseball reason necessarily to trade him, but the excuse can be, well, we can get 5 or 6 for one, and also, oh, by the way, avoid this albatross of a $500 million contract. And oh, by the way, what happens if he just walks out the door and you don't get anything for him like they didn't for Rendon or Bryce Harper?
Chris Russell from the Team 980 in D.C. So prescribe the penicillin that fixes this. Will the Nationals counter with say, okay, we're going to take 15 years and bump it up to 460, or do you think a trade is on the horizon?
I think a trade is on the horizon, but I think ultimately they will do it in the offseason. I would be mildly surprised if it gets done before August 2nd. Unless a team, blows them out of the water. You guys have a couple of top 25 prospects, right? The shortstop and the pitcher. If you start a negotiation with that and then build on top of that, maybe then you maybe get swept off your feet. And again, if the outgoing owners think that, and I truly believe this, guys, if they feel it is affecting the sales price, the interest, or the absolute execution and the timeline of a new owner and a sale and getting out, I truly believe that they will do everything they can to get rid of him before August 2nd. I would do it this offseason if I was them. But, again, they've always marched to the beat of their own drummer, right? This is a team that has seen, again, Bryce Harper go, Anthony Rendon go. Yet they sunk a bunch of money in Steven Strasburg, and he's pitched like 3 times in the last 3 years since the World Series year.
Right.
This is an ownership group that, again, is driving the train here. The general manager and president, one of the most respected guys in the world, right? Mike Rizzo came out and said, we will not trade him a month ago. And I laughed at that because he doesn't have the bottom line decision. That guy has been absolutely usurped in terms of power 2-3 times on major decisions, including Harper, at the trade deadline back in 2018. So ultimately that meant nothing. And now what's worse, guys, I don't know if you heard this, but Juan Soto was asked about it today, of course, at the All-Star game in LA. He said, wait a second. A month ago, they're saying we're not going to trade him. Now I know what. I don't know who to trust.
Here it is. By the way, Chris.
Now he's upset.
Yeah, here's the sound.
I haven't talked with anybody to tell me how that changed or what was the mindset. But a couple of weeks ago, they were saying they will never trade me, and now all these things came out. It feels really uncomfortable. You don't know what to trust, but at the end of the day, it's out of my hands of what decision they make.
It's an awkward situation. I think it makes it awkward for his next at-bat when 20% of the fans are going to want to boo him because they're upset about Bryce Harper. My follow-up was going to be, is Mike Rizzo going to be wearing the black hat on this and be cast as the enemy? And you don't think so?
I don't think Mike is going to be the enemy because I think everybody around here, at least I can speak for the DMV area, thinks this is again, Lerner family, the ownership group move, and not Mike Rizzo, not what Mike Rizzo wants to do. And, he's going to have to wear it because he's the general manager and president, and he's under contract, and he's worn it before, and he's probably going to have to wear it again, whether it's before the August 2nd deadline or, again, this offseason, because he's still under contract. So assuming he didn't get fired, which I don't think he will, ownership change or not, he's going to have to wear it, and he's going to have to be the guy who pulled the trigger. Well, guess what? It's not his decision. Again, everybody should remember that. It's not his decision. So, what I would say is this. Now, Rizzo was the one that said we are not trading him. But again, now you have all of these leaks that happened over the weekend, from starting with Rosenthal's report, and then Boris just keeps, Boris is pointing the finger at, again, the Nationals organization. I strongly believe that the Lerner family, the ownership group, is the one who leaked this to Rosenthal and got this started, and the one that is speaking at turn to pretty much every baseball insider in the world about what they're planning on doing. They say maybe one more offer, and then they're going to trade him. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. I would say there's a more than decent chance that they will trade him before the deadline. If I was them, I would wait until the offseason. But listen, guys, they've never paid anybody over. Like, they've never paid anybody egregiously. They pay guys fairly in their eyes and in certain ways, deferrals, all that stuff. This contract offer was designed to let Boris win on the total value and them win on everything else. AAV, term, all of that stuff. That's what it was designed to do.
Rooster, I put out a poll question on Twitter. I said, would Giants fans be open to trading their top two prospects, Luciano and Harrison, for Soto?
Right.
1,000 people voted so far. Like over about 80% are saying, yes, and make the deal. Could if the deal does get done, do you think it will involve Strasburg and Corbin? Do you think that those contracts are immovable, or do you think a rich team like the Giants could maybe take those two monster ugly contracts off their hands and maybe, pay less in prospects for Soto?
I think the only contract that's movable, and if this is a possible movable, is Corbin. He stunk since 2019, 2019 and the World Series. I mean, he's been awful. However, the one thing he has done, and you guys know how hard this is in baseball, right? He stays healthy, and he's made every start, and he doesn't always give them a good start. As a matter of fact, many of them are bad. And it's been, again, 2.5 years, or 2-ish years if you count the 60-game season in 2020. You guys know where I'm coming from. That's the only contract that's movable. That's got, I want to say, this year and 2 more years left, if I'm not mistaken, at a pretty good chunk of change, like 28, 29, so somewhere in that range. I don't remember the exact numbers. The Strasburg contract, again, has got another 4 years, I believe it is, plus the remainder of this year, and it's at an average annual value of like $35 million, plus there's deferrals, plus I think he's got a partial no-trade clause, and again, guys, he's pitched, 4 or 5 times since the World Series? I mean, he long time now. He's never healthy. He was healthy for 1 year. He made every start. He kicked everybody's ass, and he won the World Series MVP in 2019, and he got a big contract because of it, and he deserved it, but he's never been even close to being healthy since then. Well, so I don't care how deep your pockets are. To me, if I was taking one of those two, it would be Corbin, number one. Not that that's great, but that's a shorter contract, right? And he's healthy. Strasburg's the better pitcher, but he's never healthy.
Chris, at least you have the competent Washington Commanders season to turn away from bad ownership coming up in your local conversation. Thanks very much for joining us today. Get out of here real quick. If you got any instinct on this, let's say we're just up to Juan Soto. Do you have any idea where he would like to land? Does he have a preference, do you think?
I don't know specifically because he's never even shed some light on that.
Right, no one's ever asked this question ever.
Yeah, if I had a guess, and this is just a guess, guys, I don't think he likes big bad media. So I don't think he would like the pressure of playing in New York, even though he's a big-time player, or Chicago, or maybe even LA. So I think a place like San Francisco, a place like St. Louis, if they could come up with the money, a place like that where there's media and there's baseball, but there's not that big-time scrutiny and pressure, I think that would suit him more if he has a preference.
Oh, come on. We got a bunch of soft tossers around here. Let's get that deal done. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
See you, Rooster.
There he is, the Rooster, Chris Russell. Again, no matter how bad it gets for the Nationals, at least you got Danny Snyder right around the corner.
When you have a nickname called Rooster, you got to use it. You got to use it. You can't just, you can't call him Chris. You got to call him Rooster.
Well, and here's the thing too. Like, you even go to his Twitter handle and he's got double chicken exclamation. So he feels good about it.
Oh, he's right. He's
he
leaning
really
into
good
it.
about it. Should we give you an animal nickname? That this town loves a nickname.
Oh, seriously. I mean, anything.
Larry Krueger.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be appearing in Danville.
Look, it's a fascinating situation. Again, you open up Juan Soto's baseball reference page, and through his age 22 season, here are the players that he's compared with: Mike Trout, Frank Robinson, Bryce Harper, Miguel Cabrera, Mickey Mantle, Tony Conigliaro, Hank Aaron, Orlando Cepeda, Giancarlo Stanton, and Ken Griffey Jr. Now, obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those 10 names are already in the Hall of Fame. And the only reason why Mike Trout and, Giancarlo Stanton's probably not going to go to the Hall of Fame, but Mike Trout's going. Bryce Harper's probably going. Miguel Cabrera, when his career is over, is 1,000% going. So you have,
and he does it in the clutch, by the way, Damon. 5 jacks in 17 postseason games.
That means something. I mean, they'll tell you clutch doesn't exist, and then I'll show you a whole bunch of guys striking out in big moments to prove otherwise. I think, I mean, it's, there is something to be said for, all right, so Giants trade for Juan Soto. Don't think it's going to happen, but if they do, who would protect him? What would be around him? I mean,
Brandon, Jock Peterson. I mean,
Brandon
what you got?
Bell.
Maybe you could get Josh Bell back. Maybe you could get, they've got multiple bats that they're going to move. They're going to move Nelly Cruz. They're going to move Josh Bell. Maybe you could make a deal where you got, if you're going to trade heaven and earth and all your top prospects and take on all kinds of bad money, maybe you could get a Josh Bell, because you're right. They would have to have some protection. Otherwise, it's just like, trot down to first base, and here comes Austin Slater,
who, by the way, should be this team's full-time DH. There should not be a single lineup which doesn't include him. You
don't like Austin Wynn's DHing twice last week?
Come on.
You don't like Yermin Mercedes DHing? I mean, some of the guys they've had DHing recently, it's like, what?
Here's the thing. We were looking at, I was talking with Ray about this last week, and I'm sure numbers have changed because that's what happens in baseball every day. But when we were talking about this last week, you had Austin Slater with the 3rd best batting average on the team, and the split that they sit him for is like the 5th best batting average on the team.
Right.
He can't hit righties because we don't like that number. He's only Mr. Lefty. But his batting average against righties is the 5th best batting average that your team is carrying. So what are you doing? Like, leave him. Tinker. You got all kinds of tinker places. Tinker over there, tinker here, tinker there, tinker here. Let that guy get 550, 600 at-bats and find out what you really got. He's not much of a fielder. We know that. Luckily, well, not luckily. To me, it's ruined the sport, basically. But you got a designated hitter in the National League. So
Gabe would be an awesome Little League manager, because the parents would be happy because so many kids get to play.
Absolutely.
It's the 7th inning. You're coming out. You're coming in. You're coming out. You're coming in. It's like he's getting paid by how many guys he uses per game.
You have to stick around for that 7th inning, which the kid's going to blow anyway. So,
where's Bobby? He's at the snack shack.
Foul balls, get a freeze pop. God, so you're right in Little League age, aren't you? Now,
my oldest guy is he's playing like juniors now. It's like 50-70 ball.
Oh.
So I got a kid who's going to play varsity ball, and then I got a guy who's 13. So those are my young guys.
That's how long it's been since you and I have been together. God almighty.
Seriously.
You got teenagers now.
Seriously. Last time we did a show together, my college graduate from Davis was like in the 3rd grade.
Yeah. Last time we did a show together, I was not married. I had no kids. I used to go out and drink all the time. I used to live a single man's life, and it was incredible.
I liked you better back then.
Look, I'm very, very happy. It's I don't know if Jillian is, but I am. I mean, it's worked out really, really nice. But God, that's wow.
Time flies, man. Once you have kids, you officially timestamp yourself. Boop.
Are you on a home run derby at all tonight? Do you like anyone tonight?
Heck yeah, I'm wagering on it.
Well, who'd you put your money on?
Well, I haven't put it down yet, but I'm taking the polar bear. How could you not? He's a 2-time winner.
What's the thing? Are you getting enough value to like that pick?
Well, I mean, I'd rather win. I'd rather win and not get great value than pick somebody that's great value and lose. So, I mean, there's only 2 guys that, to me, even have a shot, and he's one of them. So I think Schwarber's got a shot.
That's why I wore this. That's why, by the way, we look like Indiana, Kentucky. At least it says Kelly Tough on your shirt there.
This is for Jim Kelly. I played golf with Jim Kelly when he was going through his whole, he's gone through a lot of physical travails, and he gave me this T-shirt. The great Jim Kelly is a terrific guy. I like Schwarber.
Give me Schwarber. Give me the Hoosier.
What if Soto wins it? I mean, he could, but to me, Alonso's like made for this thing.
Dude, if Soto wins it, there's going to be a Scott Boras press conference immediately.
What if he was traded tonight after home run derby?
Well, that could go a long way affecting the outcome of the All-Star game. Have you just seen this?
What's that?
So Lucas came in here and just handed this to me, and I really do want to read this before we get into it, but we'll get into it next. If the All-Star game is tied after 9 innings, we're going to get another home run derby.
So we're living in fear of 7-7 at Miller Park. Remember that one year where they were consulting with Bud, but should we end it? Should we not? They just cannot decide what they want this game to be. It's amazing because when I was a little kid, the NL dominated the AL because it was important. Because it was important to Willie Mays. And then because it was important to Willie Mays, it was important to Willie McCovey. It was important to McCovey, then it was important to guys like Joe Morgan. And suddenly all these guys in the National League, it meant something.
You know who's one of the all-time this game's important to me guys? Ichiro.
Yeah.
Ichiro
was great in this game.
Did you hear about what he used to do? Like Ichiro, everyone assumed like Ichiro, he's kind of the quiet slap hitter who is going to, how much is he really going to talk? Because we really don't understand how much English he speaks. And he's always got an interpreter with him. So, are you going to go up? Are you going to get pally with him? What's the situation? Well, apparently before All-Star games, Ichiro would come hopping out of the locker and just have the most F-bomb, F the National League laden tirades that Joe Torre would just be sitting back and laughing about. And Ichiro was the guy who would stir the pot in the clubhouse before they took the field. Whoever knew? But
I mean, it's funny. Ichiro, and he dominated the one here. Didn't he win the MVP in the one here? Was it inside the park
home run? And I'll tell you right now, the single worst thing that Barry Bonds ever did in his career was sit out that home run derby.
Yeah. I mean, you had it in your backyard. Come on.
Literally sitting there the day of the derby, hung over in front of his locker with a sanitary sock over his eyes because he threw a party at the place that used to be right around from the old station. What was the name of that club? What was the name of that club?
Thirsty Bear?
No, it was the club next to it. It was
Centerfolds?
No, the club across the street when it used to be a club. No, I
only know Centerfolds. Sorry, Damon.
And on that note, Damon and Larry on Damon and Ratto. Ray is off this week, and we still have quite a bit coming up. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Damon and Ratto on the Odyssey app, wherever you find your favorite podcast. We're going to get into this seriously, did they cook this up over brunch today? How come I'm reading about this the day before the All-Star game? Who got high?
They're living in fear, going, oh my God, what if it ties? Oh, no.
Man, what if we just go ahead and have a home run derby after 9 tomorrow night?
Half these guys could be on planes.
What's up, everybody? Nick Costos here with the Sports Betting Minute, brought to you by Bet River Sportsbook, your hometown sportsbook. Pro Football Futures Market, Tennessee's win total this year is sitting at 9, over -122, under +100, and I like the under. I think Tennessee's got some blow-up potential this year. I don't like this roster, so I like this under 9 for Tennessee at plus money.
Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Indeed, it's Damon and Ratto with a little bit of a different flavor this week. Larry Krueger in for Ray Ratto. If you're just getting in your car, had a big Monday, you're like, what? I haven't heard this in like 11 years. It's the last time you heard this, it either came to you from Candlestick, Sam's Chowder House, or a point in between. Larry, are you having fun? I mean, where else do you get to use the sentence at work? Can I call you Rooster?
I just remember that Sam's Chowder House, man. I mean, we neither of us lived in Half Moon Bay. It took us an eternity to get there and back.
Here was the ultimate,
and still it was awesome.
Fib. I mean, but here's the thing. We would legitimately have to miss the most important chunk of the game as the post-game host to get down there. Now, luckily, it was Ted Robinson doing the call at the time, and you could listen to the game, but there's a big difference between listening to football and watching it.
Yeah,
more than baseball and the romance that comes with baseball on the radio and blah 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 blah. Football on the radio, I don't care who's doing the play-by-play. That's not the way I want to do it.
The Sam's Chowder House,
the Oyster Rockefeller, the Oyster Krugerfeller. Yes. That is a serious lobster roll.
Yes,
I did like that.
We ate a lot of seafood there.
We did. We chowed. Anthony Castrovins.
MLB.com.
MLB.com, MLB Network guy. If the All-Star game is tied after 9 innings, we get another home run derby. Typically, an All-Star game is preceded by a home run derby, which, by the way, is going to be starting in 10 minutes? Was this thing start at 5 o'clock? Yeah. So All-Star Derby is about to start, the home run derby. But beginning with tomorrow night's All-Star game, any All-Star game tied after 9 innings will be settled not with extra innings, again, because everybody in baseball is about to have Tommy John surgery, apparently, but an All-Star tiebreaker decided by dingers. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that sounds more interesting than the Ghost Runner on second.
Oh, I hate the Ghost Runner.
I don't like it either. But
you know what this guarantees? No starters will be in the home run derby. Why? Because when the starters come out, they usually hit the airport.
Exactly. They're gone.
These guys are not even the same time zone by the time the game ends.
The thing about, I don't like the Ghost Runner. I don't.
Oh, it's awful.
But I have to admit, there is nothing that gets me to flip over to a baseball game faster than that. There really isn't. When I know, it's an extra innings now, like this thing could end at any minute. I'm going to go check that out. Whether it's I'm not even talking Giants or A's, which I'm always watching. Game on MLB Network between the Tampa Bay Rays and the whatever. I was going to say Orioles, but I'm not even going to tell an Orioles joke right now. They're having a nice year. But, Rays and Rangers, a game that I normally wouldn't give a rip about. On MLB Network, it's the top of the 10th. All right, I'll flip it on. It gets me, even though I hate it. It gets me.
I'm not even there. It doesn't get me. I hate it. It's awful. The only thing that's interesting to me about it at all is that in this era where nobody, subscribes to the theory of get them on, get them over, get them in. Now they're in a situation where they have to do exactly that. And how many times do teams just sit back, even though they get the runner on second base and everybody's on their back heel trying to hit one over the fence? It's like, manufacture a run. Can you not manufacture a run? Nobody bunts.
Dude, it's not just the death.
It's like if you score one run, it's like viewed as a loss.
Yeah. Well, there is not only a death of situational hitting, but there's a death of situational managing in Major League Baseball.
Right. You know what it used to, somebody told me this the other day because I was talking about the Giants and they should have bunted. And he's like, how it used to be you'd have like 13 regulars on a team plus all the pitchers and you had like 2 guys that couldn't bunt. He's like, now it's like the opposite. Now you got a whole roster full of guys. There's like 2 guys who can bunt. I'm like, wow. Well, that right there is probably why you're not seeing bunts and extra innings, because there's not a lot of guys in the roster that can lay one down.
Well, and just, base path aggressiveness has been moneyballed right out of the game. Like you never get a guy thrown out to try to make something happen because the 2-run home run that everybody's swinging for now is going to be right around the corner. Anyways, speaking of home runs, here you go. Jeff Passan just said, if there is a tiebreaker, your 3 home run derby participants to settle tomorrow night, should it be tied after 9 All-Star game. In the American League, it would be Ty France, Julio Rodriguez, and Kyle Tucker. In the National League, it'd be Pete Alonso, Ronald Acuna Jr., and Kyle Schwarber. Okay, so if the game goes to extras, the Nationals are going to win it.
National League's going to win. I mean, that's not even fair. I mean, that doesn't seem equitable at all. And why do they know already?
Right. What if they pull
They volunteer? By the way, take volunteers?
They pull Acuna Jr. out of that game. By the way, how unfair is that a guy to ask Kyle Schwarber or Acuna or, well, how many of these? So here's the funny thing. At least Ty France and Kyle Tucker are going to be fresh. A lot of these guys are going to get swung out tonight. I mean, it takes
some
a little
guys
out
say,
of you.
yeah. Jock Peterson says that, you're not the same for 3 or 4 days after home run derby.
Jock Peterson hasn't been the same since being named to the All-Star game, to be honest with you. Look, I think Jock Peterson is a nice player. He did produce the single best storyline of the first half, a fight about fantasy football.
Right.
This guy's had 2 hits since the 4th of July.
He's still right now. Every single Giant is coming to the plate, and you can only watch one AB. I'm watching Jock.
I'll give you that. But since being announced a starter at the All-Star game, he's gone 2 for 22 with no home runs and 2 RBIs. He's hitting 111 with a 273 on base and a 439 slugging percentage. He hasn't hit a home run since June 25th. I mean,
he's due.
Okay. I guess that is an optimistic way to look at it. But this is a guy who signed a 1-year deal as a free agent after winning the World Series last year. I mean, I wonder if he is just in love with the fact that he is. I mean, at least they told him. They were straight up with him. They're like, you are going to be facing right-handed hitting pretty much only.
But I mean, even so, think about that for a second. Adjust. Okay. That was the plan in the offseason. But now look at your team. Now you got a guy who's on pace for 35 bombs. You might want to adjust.
He's an all-star. I mean, is he an all-star because you got a bunch of, I'm vote-heavy fan base? Is that it? I mean,
partially.
Me, yes. Is he really an all-star? He's a platoon player.
Right.
How often does a platoon player start an all-star game?
But I mean, he came out and said, hey, I knew when I signed the contract that I was only coming here to bat against righties and this and that. Okay, that's fine. And he did not work out in the offseason. My goodness. I mean, he's easily 10, 15 pounds heavier than he was even just a year ago. But I mean, if you're Gabe, make the adjustment, right? I mean, this guy's the guy that people want to see. This is the guy that can win. He can hit a blast in the 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever, and win you a game. I don't want to see that guy pinch hit for the most part. I realize he's got some flaws against lefties, but I mean, there's not some world beater that he's being replaced by. I'd rather see them just treat Peterson like a star, because essentially on this team, he's your only star.
This new format was negotiated as part of the CBA that went into effect this season. Okay, so the manager of the American League and National League squads will each select 3 players and 1 alternate in the event of an injury on his roster who have agreed to participate, as well as 3 coaches to throw batting practice. What? Like, the whole point that would make this really interesting is, all right, we got a closer throwing heat, or not even just anyone throwing heat in a home run derby.
No.
You're just going to be laying it up there?
Yes, it's home run derby.
But it's home run derby to decide an all-star game. It's not home run derby tonight.
I know, but by the way, at least the all-star game doesn't decide home field advantage for the
Oh my
World
God.
Series.
Could you imagine? Each player will get 3 swings. The team with the highest combined homer total after those 3 rounds will be declared winner of the game. And my God, baseball just...
What do you want? The Elam ending?
Tries to ruin everything.
I mean, it is crazy. It's like, come on. What, we can't have the game go extras. Why? Because somebody might pitch an extra inning.
Because there is no decision that is ever made as to what's good for the game or what do the fans want to see or what could make this fun and exciting. It is all asset protection.
Right.
It's all it is. It's like your baseball team is managed by Aflac and Geico.
Right.
It's just insurance companies.
We're minimizing risk to protect your star player. Yeah, no, that's clearly what it's about at this point. But I always used to love the baseball All-Star game. I mean, some of baseball's greatest moments have actually occurred in the All-Star game. You can't say that in the NFL. You can't say that about the Pro Bowl. You can't say that about the NBA All-Star game.
It's
for the
the
most
only
part.
All-Star game that matters, unless you want to count there were 3 tight minutes at the end of a 4th quarter in the All-Star game in the NBA All-Star game.
But the only thing I'd say about the All-Star game, it's lost a lot for me. I mean, first of all, it's a kid's thing. And if you don't realize it, when I talk to my 13-year-old, he still loves the Pro Bowl. I'm like, he's like, Dad, you want to watch the Pro Bowl? I'm like, really? No.
Football without intensity is unwatchable.
Yeah, I mean, I do not want to watch the Pro Bowl. I'd rather watch the Senior Bowl like 5 times than watch the Pro Bowl once. But I do understand that the kids love the All-Star games, but I used to.
But do they? That's the thing. Are the kids loving the All-Star game? Because the average Major League Baseball fan is a 58-year-old man these days.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. My only thing on the All-Star game is I remember when it was a bigger deal pre-interleague, because it was like, how would our favorite player do against all the best pitchers from the American League that you've never, for the most part, seen or only seen a little bit of. Now, there's an interleague game every single night. To me, the specialness of that's all gone.
The interleague schedule should be used like an Olympic schedule, once every 4 years. That's all you should do it. Well, you don't get to see every team coming into your town. Tough.
Right. That's why it's an attraction.
Right.
That's why we like the Olympics, right? Because it's not every year. It's every 4 years. Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. They want everything though. They want Yankees and Red Sox and all. I mean, it's like
there's a designated hitter in the National League.
I know.
There's nothing about baseball, nothing about this sport, including ballpark dimensions, including payrolls, that was ever symmetrical. Stop trying to make baseball symmetrical. It's not a symmetrical sport.
Stop trying to make it fair at every turn. Personally, I would love to go back to AL plays AL, NL plays NL, and the All-Star game and World Series has a little bit more intrigue. I liked the All-Star game as a kid. I liked when Bo Jackson took Big Daddy out at the Big A. There were some great moments. Even when Atlee Hamker gave up the granny to Fred Lynn at Comiskey. Still, those are still great moments and moments that you tuned in for. Now it's a little sleepy. It's a little on the sleepy side.
It is. And it can still, I mean, to me, when it was all the players around Ted Williams at Fenway, you had Pedro.
99?
Pedro took out Barry Larkin, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire. K'd all of them, I think. By the way.
Randy Johnson against John Kruk.
Oh, that's a fun moment.
Yeah.
And welcome, boys and girls, to your 5 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey station.
Again, Damon and Ratto, Ray is off this week, wearing a bikini on a beach somewhere right now. I'm hoping.
Oh, why? Why'd you do that to us?
And we got Larry for the week here on 95.7 The Game. And we're going to have an awful lot of football throughout the week coming up. It's officially time. I mean, do you realize that we're going to be playing NFL preseason games in like 2 weeks?
Seriously. Get ready. Get ready. In fact, I heard a Niner rumor today involving Garoppolo that I actually think makes more sense than any of the other Garoppolo rumors that we've heard in this entire offseason.
I thought the Houston Texans might have been an option.
Right.
They're not going to do it.
They're going with Davis Mills.
Cleveland Browns could be an option. I guess they're not going to do it. They're not interested.
We'll see
what comes down.
Yeah, what's the suspension going to be? If it's 4 games or 6 games, it sounds like they're pretty content with Jacoby Brissett.
Right. The Seattle Seahawks is a full non-starter. Not only do the 49ers not want to move him in division, I would think, but Seattle is full tanks a lot this season. I don't think that they even want to win 8 games if they could cobble it together.
And does he, I mean, I couldn't picture that being a fit. Jimmy's not accurate down the field, and DK Metcalf doesn't even react to the ball down the field. I think those guys would hook up like twice a year.
What's the rumor?
The rumor is that the New York Giants have interest in Jimmy G, and they have Tyrod Taylor backing up Daniel Jones. They got a new head coach, and Brian Daboll, the OC for Buffalo, goes to New York. So, and they won 4 games last year, 3 games. I mean, the Giants are bad, and I would imagine Daboll will turn it around. But I think Tyrod Taylor coming back for Jimmy G, Jimmy G to the New York Giants for Tyrod Taylor and like maybe a conditional day 3 draft choice makes a ton of sense. Tyrod Taylor in a lot of ways is a very similar skill set to Trey Lance. He has that mobility. Shanahan once upon a time said that was an important thing, that his backup had a similar skill set to a starter. I don't know if that was just something you say so you don't have to bring back Colin Kaepernick, or if he actually believes that, but he's on record as saying that. Tyrod Taylor, I think, would be a perfect quarterback to throw as the number 2 to Trey. He's played games. He's athletic. He's a veteran. He's mature. Plus, he's got a good relationship with Anthony Lynn. So I think that would make a lot of sense. And Tyrod Taylor probably, I think, makes like $2 million. The Niners are $4 million under the cap. They could absorb that money. And obviously Jimmy G going away, you could still earmark all the Jimmy G money for a Debo or a Bosa or an extension or both. So I think in a lot of ways that makes sense. Makes sense for the Giants if they don't believe in Daniel Jones. And
I thought you were on team Brock Purdy.
I do like Brock Purdy. I really do. But still, you're talking about Mr. Irrelevant,
right?
I don't know that I would feel good about him as the number 2.
I mean, I guess we're talking Nate Sudfeld in the meantime, right? Here's the thing,
which I think, to me, I mean, that's if you go to Nate Sudfeld, I think you're basically just throwing away the year.
You're in a lot of trouble. Are you? I mean, we haven't talked Niner football an awful lot, you and I, in 11 years. Where are you on Trey Lance?
Last time we were talking Niner football, I think Joe Nedney just made an extra point.
Oh, last time you and I were talking 49er football, like the old joke was, what do you call 3 straight Alex Smith completions? 4th and 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you on Trey Lance? Are you hopeful that I mean, of course, you're a Niners fan, so you're hopeful that it works. Do you?
No, I'm all in on Trey Lance.
You're in.
Total belief in Trey Lance. I mean, I all these people that say his accuracy and this and that, I'm not really buying that. I just went to the mini camp. I saw him throw dime after dime after dime. The last 2 days of that mini camp, he was
throwing against air, though.
No, I mean, he was throwing one day was a red zone deal, and you got to be accurate in the red zone. He was. And that's the last practice that I saw. He threw a dime down the middle to Jordan Matthews. He threw a dime down the middle. And we're talking about 40 yards down the field, dropped it in the bucket to Ray McLeod. It was just an absolute perfect Russell Wilson, put it in the breadbasket. So, and I know some road scouts who know Trey and have gone to North Dakota State and have met with them and watched film, and they're all in that this is the right kid, that he loves the process of football and that the arrow's pointing up, and then he's going to be one of the greats. So I'm a believer. I haven't seen anything that makes me think. The only thing I didn't like about Trey was Shanahan's game plan against Arizona. I thought
terrible.
The game plan was horrific.
It's exactly what we talked about after it happened.
Yeah,
and I didn't think it got better for his second start either.
Well, but he played exceptionally well amid a lot of pressure in his face in that second half against the Texans. But I agree. They didn't necessarily. I didn't love the game plan in either game, but the second game plan was far better than the first. I mean, they ran him 16 quarterback runs, at least 7 of which were designed quarterback runs. Many of them were out of the shotgun, where they just basically told him, find a hole, pick and slide, and, no lead blocker. I mean, just stuff you would never do with your quarterback. And he took a hit every time.
Comcast Business text line asks, Larry, why would the Giants want Jimmy? That doesn't make much sense to me. Well, look, the Giants have Daniel Jones, who they're mentally divorcing themselves of the Daniel Jones era right now. And I think that Brian Daboll is like, he's already thinking this ain't the guy. It just is not the guy.
It's New York City too. You don't get forever to turn it around. The clock starts ticking.
Are you turning
right
anything
away.
around with Garoppolo though? I mean, that's an honest question. I don't think anyone can answer that. Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm
not saying that he was their first choice, but you're staring at Daniel Jones and Davis Webb. I think, and Tyrod Taylor. At least Jimmy gives you a starting option if Daniel Jones shows in camp or in the preseason that he's a serial turnover machine, which is basically what he's been to this point.
He gets to reunite with Matt Breida.
That's right. Breida's there.
Look, I don't even know if the team that Garoppolo ends up on has revealed itself yet. I think there's a preseason injury that is going to open up a line of communication in business. I'm also just thinking, okay, what's the worst case scenario for the 49ers?
For who?
So Trey Lance, bad break, like of his
an injury.
Exactly. As much as everyone I think anyone understands that you don't carry $26 million a year backup quarterbacks, and it's really unfair to any young kid to have such a presence in his rearview mirror. Is there a better insurance policy than Jimmy Garoppolo if something went wrong? And then it would also be a huge showcase. Oh, Jimmy came in, he played well. If that happened early, maybe you'd have more teams lining up to do business. It's a tough situation for them to be in and the young guy to be in. But at the same time, if it's already budgeted, I don't know.
You want to bring Jimmy back?
I don't, but I would understand if Shanahan did.
Well, I mean, everybody's got a standard. Everybody's got basically something they're graded on. And ultimately, collectively, Krueg and Shanahan and Lynch, they're trying to win games and championships. But then within that, I think they also have their own individual scoreboard. Krueg wants to have cap-friendly signings. Shanahan's trying to win games, and Lynch is trying to win trades. And so I don't think that he won the DeForest Buckner-Kinlaw trade. I don't think he won the D Ford trade. You could argue he did win the Garoppolo trade to this point, but I think John Lynch could use a win as far as a trade goes. So that, I think, matters to John, I think.
I think that ship is almost sailed, right? Remember when Garoppolo might fetch you a low first rounder? He's a fifth rounder with spice attached to it. He's a fifth rounder with conditions attached to it. Jimmy is going to return essentially nothing to the Niners depth chart.
You don't really know that because ultimately you've already painted a scenario a second ago that maybe the team that trades for him is unknown and might have lost their quarterback. Well, if they've lost their quarterback and they want Jimmy midstream, maybe the price tag is higher than a fifth round pick. But I hear you. It's not about, I think the lose situation is this. You release him, he winds up on Seattle. Seattle sweeps you. They go to the playoffs. They're supposed to win 6 or 7 games. Instead, they win 9 or 10 games. You wind up winning 6 or 7 games and get swept by them, which is not crazy since they've beaten you like 14 of 16. I think the heat's on John there. If all of a sudden Garoppolo winds up in Seattle and Seattle goes to the playoffs and the 49ers don't. So I think there is a scenario that if you're Lynch, you want to root against. But I don't know how this thing's going to end, but Shanahan's made it perfectly clear at multiple turns that they have no plans to release, Garoppolo. Is that something you say for posturing? Is that something you say for, for gamesmanship, trying to call another team's bluff and force a price tag that you want? Or is he actually serious about that? Jed has made it perfectly clear that they can afford Jimmy Garoppolo on their cap this year. It's been budgeted for. There isn't that play. They don't have to extend Bosa this year. They don't have to extend Debo this year, really. So they could kick this can down the road and just bring Jimmy back. But to me, that just invites a circus to town where every day it's like, you're these two quarterbacks, and maybe there's guys in that room that like Jimmy, and maybe this is a divisive type maneuver.
Right.
So
how could it go sour? That's one way.
Yeah.
It's not a guaranteed way, but it's one way that things could get sour in that locker room. Oh, Trey is just not hitting guys on third down. Jimmy might have made that pass. That's not the conversation you want to have.
But, let's also not forget that you could make an argument that the greatest that we ever saw from both Steve Young and Joe Montana happened when they were uncomfortable, when they were looking over their shoulder. The best that Steve was, for the most part, was with Joe looking over his shoulder in 92, 93. The best that Joe ever was 87, 88, 89, 90 with Steve right there.
It was Bill Walsh's greatest attribute was putting somebody in the rearview mirror.
Sometimes, maybe it's not comfortable. It doesn't mean that it's not the smartest move. And maybe they're thinking along those lines.
It's a fascinating problem to have. I don't even know if you could describe it all the way as a problem. If you play it right, I guess it's not. If you play it wrong, boy, it is. It's
if you win the Super Bowl, it's not a problem.
To me, here's the deal. The minute that they gave up all that draft capital for Trey Lance, they should have just been in on the Trey Lance trade. That's the thing. You have sunk so much into, we want this guy to work out. Really, all they did, and there's no shame in losing an NFC title game. There isn't. It sucks. But there isn't any shame in it. Only 2 teams get to reach the Super Bowl. You were 4 of the last teams playing. But what really is better for the Niners? Getting this guy's rookie year out of the way or postponing it for an NFC title game loss? Of course, we have the 2020 vision of hindsight to know that that's what happened now. But
would they be, you're asking basically essentially, would they be better off
this year 2 of Trey Lance? And
if they just played Trey last year?
They only won 7 games, but Trey got all that rookiness out of him.
See, I would say they did it the right way. Why? Because I really think they were staring right at Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they just said, you know what? We want the best prospect. We're going to evaluate who we think is the best long-term prospect, and then we want to take that prospect and we want to put them in the best environment, the best development process. And they view that as what Mahomes in Kansas City endured, the 1-year redshirt year. And it made sense because you're talking about an FCS quarterback. I think there was like no quarterback in the last 40 years that went in the first round had thrown fewer passes than what Trey Lance threw at North Dakota State. So there was every reason in the world to redshirt him.
I really thought it was going to be Mac Jones.
I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Mac Jones.
And like, isn't that the quarterback that Shanahan really wants for his system? A guy to turn around and hand the ball off 25, 28 times for religion. Like, that's just our religion on this team. And it should be, because nobody puts a running game together like Kyle Shanahan. It doesn't even matter who the running back is for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Jones.
It just works. Mac Jones is the accurate, not coming off script quarterback that I always thought Kyle wanted. The last thing Kyle wants is the guy who thinks, all right, I'm going to come off my third read to now roll out and make something up.
But was Mac Jones dynamic? Is Mac Jones dynamic enough to win Super Bowls with?
I don't know.
He was efficient this year in New England, but at the end of the year, now I don't know if it was fatigue. It could have been fatigue, but he didn't finish strong. So I don't know. I mean, there's reports out of New England. You probably saw the same report I saw a week ago. There was somebody whispering saying that, there's NFL people with the Patriots that believe that Mac Jones is going to be a legitimate NFL MVP candidate this year, that he's progressed that much from year 1 to year 2. So we'll see. What if they had just stayed where they were at 13? Mac Jones was there for them at that point. He went 15 to New England. They could have kept all those picks and had Mac Jones. That's, I think, the what if in your head is like, okay, well, wait a second. If you hadn't traded up, but once you traded up, I think that was a loud statement that you wanted a dynamic, difference-making, futuristic, cutting-edge type player. And I don't think that's Mac Jones. I think that player has to have an element of athleticism and mobility.
That's the guy you just throw into the fire. Like the patience and time, these are not things that exist anymore in draft picks.
Oh, I know. The expectation is you're going to go, and you're going to go now.
Mike is in Daly City. Mike, you're on 95.7 The Game. Damon and Ratto, Larry Krueger in this week. How you doing?
Great. How you guys?
Very well.
Yeah, I guess I agree on the Giants part. I think trading Jimmy to the Giants would be a great idea. I say, I don't agree that the Giants would want to do that, but I think the Niners would do well to get Tyrod Taylor. But I called about the extra innings that you were talking about before the 49ers.
Yeah, the All-Star game is going to go to...
No, we all hate the man on second, and I don't like the home run derby, especially the way they're doing it. But I suggested this a while ago when they had the man on second initially proposed, and that is to just determine how many innings you want to play with real rules, same rules as the first 9 innings. So let's just say you go 11 innings, so both managers know that's the last inning that's going to be played. And at the end of the 11th inning, if it's still tied, you toss a coin, and the manager who wins gets to choose whether they play offense or defense for the quote-unquote sudden death half inning. So the top of the 12th, if you want to call it that.
Right. Runner scores, game over. Runner doesn't scores, defensive team wins?
Well, the manager gets to choose. He can choose offense or defense. So if he chooses defense, he has to stop the other team from scoring.
Now, do both teams get the ball from the 15-yard line? No.
Yeah.
Mike, in the world of ideas, it's not the worst idea I've ever heard. I thought, in my experience, baseball always had the best idea, which was, we're going to play till somebody wins tonight. And that's our sport.
Wasn't that a great feeling as a kid when you were sitting there going, I don't know what time this game's going to end?
We don't have a running clock on this sport. It's the only sport in the world that doesn't have a running clock.
We're such control freaks. That's no longer good enough for us.
Well, and it's entertain me instantly. That's everything in entertainment is entertain me instantly. Like, forget about having a good pilot. Your pilot better be a smash hit in the first 8 minutes or America is out on you. Like, there is just no patience for anything that happens slowly or gradually. And that's the trouble that baseball is in, along with the fact that, the most exciting thing about a baseball game is a ball being put into play. And that just does not happen anymore. The league is hitting 240. The league is 20 points over the batting average. That meant you weren't even a major league hitter in my entire lifetime. A 240 hitter is a new 285 hitter. Like somebody earlier when we were talking about Juan Soto and what his value is.
Hitting 250.
Yeah, somebody said, why would I want Juan Soto who's hitting 250 this year? 250 is almost close to the top of the National League in terms of batting average. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, how about this? I mean, on the runner on second, why does it have to start in the 9th? Why can't they start the runner on second in the 12th? Give me 3 innings of extra innings. And if you know what, I agree. You don't want to 18 innings, 16 innings. But the only people who are complaining about this, the only people who are complaining about the time are people that are getting paid
in baseball. General managers, players, managers, and
media.
Mostly the media who wanted to be home by 11:30 tonight.
Right. The media and the people who are getting paid. Everybody who's there and it's like it's a show. Why would they want the show to end early? To me, the only time I ever felt robbed at a baseball game as a kid was when you went and watch Big Daddy or somebody who just dealt, and all of a sudden it was like an hour and 40 minutes. Maybe you got there in the bottom of the first or top of the second, and the game was over too fast. That's the only time I ever felt kind of screwed over. So
are you in the camp that baseball's never been less enjoyable than it is right now? Are you enough of a guy who still loves the game and has attached romance to it to where you're still totally on board with baseball? I got to tell you, there's nothing in my life that I would have bet on, in terms of, hey, Damon, do you think that by the time you're 48, you will, and I'll be 48 in March, but by the time you're 40s, in your 40s, do you think you're going to like baseball less than you did within your 20s? What is it? No chance. I love baseball. Baseball's I need baseball in my life. Baseball to me is an everyday friend. It's what I get up and look at, first box score every day. To me, Larry, did you actually see Yaz's walk-off grand slam? Because I did. I checked out on that one. I'm like, they got none chance. And honey, you want to watch Stranger Things? Let's go.
Right.
I mean, the amount of I'm ready to walk away from this game that I now experience in my life is extraordinary. I can't believe that baseball has ruined essentially my fandom. Now you can say, well, Damon, did you get spoiled covering 3 Giants World Series championships? No, I don't think that's it. Damon, did you get spoiled a little bit when the Cubs won it in 2016? That definitely reset the how important this all is to urgently do it in my lifetime. But
it's a less dynamic game than we grew up with. You can't say the same thing about the NFL. No. The NBA is not less dynamic than it was in 1975. But baseball is. I remember my dad coming home, taking me my very first game. It was 1974, 75. It was a Friday night, Giants, Phillies. We got there top of the first. Bake McBride hit a ball in the gap, and he hit the first base bag. The helmet flew off, and man, you got to see those long legs churning, and he went around to third for a stand-up triple. I was hooked, man. It was like, wow, look at this. Look at the athleticism. Baseball is the only game where there's less athleticism in 2022 than there was in 1982. I mean, that's not right. And that's because the dynamic athletes of the day played baseball in that era, but they don't play it now. Baseball is not being played by the greatest athletes in the country. To me, the game's less athletic and less dynamic, and there's less doubles, triples. There's more of the 3 outcomes: the strikeout, the walk, the home run. I'd like to see doubles and triples and action. And then you introduce the shift. Now you're seeing rockets hit, but somebody's fielding it in the outfield and throwing the guy out at first base. So now we're suppressing offense because of statistical data being prevalent. I think baseball has operated under horrendous leadership. The freaking commissioner of the game, Rob Manfred, doesn't even send off a vibe that he likes the game.
Not
Heck,
at all.
he called the World Series trophy a hunk of metal. He should have been fired right then and there. I mean, your job is PR if you're the commissioner, and
your job is not PR if you're the commissioner. Your job, and this is where Ray Ratto has absolutely, he exercised a little. No, but that's the thing. I mean, any concept that the commissioner of the sport is there to make sure the sport is well taken care of is nonsense. He is nothing more than a human shield for problems and to cover owners and to make as much money for owners as possible. He works for them, not us, not fans.
But he also is tied to the messaging of the game. And if the commissioner of the game is going to call the World Series trophy a hunk of metal, you know who he lost there? You know who he really pissed off? It wasn't the fans. It was the players. Because the players, there are players that still play the game. Now they want to secure the bag and they want to take care of their families. Don't confuse that. But there's still guys who play for the ring. And that's not like some 12-year-old pie in the sky. Go talk to baseball players, talk to them about the ring. Many of these guys play for the ring.
Right.
For him to describe the ultimate reward, the World Series trophy, as just a hunk of metal, just shows how disconnected he really is from his own players.
It is the worst trophy. Nothing beats the Stanley Cup. The Lombardi's pretty cool. I mean, there are cooler trophies.
I saw your kid loves the Stanley Cup.
Man. Oh, my kid loves the Stanley Cup.
He was mesmerized by the Stanley Cup a couple weeks ago.
He held his sippy cup over his head.
I mean, he's in. He's like he's probably asking you about Brent Burns being traded. I mean, he's all in now on the Stanley Cup.
By the way, Postman in Capitola, who was enjoying hearing us back on the radio together again, said, "Damon, I thought you were going to be 47 in March." Now you get me like doing the math. How old am I?
How old are you?
How old am I? I think I'm 47 right now. And I'll be 48 in 2023.
What was your high school class? 91?
No, I was born in 75. So there you go.
So, okay. You're 5 years younger than me. I was born in 70.
Okay. Yeah. No. So it's really easy for you to count your age.
Yeah.
See me, I gotta deal with an odd number.
Yeah. I'm
terrible at math.
You got to do some serious math.
Terrible at math. Yeah. I think it'll be 48 in March.
You remember taking math in school? Subtraction, addition's tricky friend.
But that's it, man. I mean, the minute I got out of addition and subtraction, I don't know how I did
it. Was that multiplication and division that tripped you up?
Calculus, trigonometry might as well have been trying to learn.
Algebra 2 was a nightmare for me. Factoring binomials and God, please no.
Pythagoras, not your friend.
Oh my God.
Your friend.
I got to halfway through Algebra 2 and just said, no mas. I was like Roberto Duran. That's it. I've had it.
By the way, so you want to talk about, to me, the thing that's killing baseball. I mean, there's a lot of things killing baseball. The humidor is killing baseball. Like Arizona used to be a launching pad on the same scale of Cape Canaveral, much less Coors Field.
One of the livest yards in the entire big leagues.
And there were two reasons. Number one, their pitching pretty much always sucked, and the ball jumps in the desert.
Right.
Well, guess what? The ball still jumps in the desert, and Arizona pitching still kind of sucks. So what's the difference? The difference is this humidor. And this is pivoting away from Arizona because nobody cares anymore. Let's get back to, one of the stories of the day, Juan Soto, this genius left-handed hitter who might be traded in an age where you'd think, well, we're going to want this guy in our franchise for another 14 years. Well, they offered 15 for 40, richest deal ever. He says, no, thanks. Let's talk more. But they went public and now everyone's upset. So here's Juan Soto as a perfect example that something is officially up. Because if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, that guy can hit. Now, we even talked earlier today to the Rooster, Chris Russell, who said he got off to a really slow start. This is the 1 year that your slow start doesn't bother me at all because spring training and COVID, it all got so goofy and screwed up with a lockout and everything. Like it was a shorter spring training. It was rushed, so I'm not offended by anybody's slow start. But now he's totally killing it. Anyways, Juan Soto is a perfect example of something just being up around baseball with the ball, the humidor. In 2019, he hit 282 over 659 plate appearances. Now you get to 220, you got a pandemic, you limit him to just 169 plate appearances. He leads the league with a 351. In 2021, the season normalized again. He got over 500 plate appearances. He hits 313. This season, he's got 400 plate appearances and he's hitting 250. Do you think Juan Soto forgot how to hit?
No.
Do you think Juan Soto doesn't know what to do? Do you think he isn't situation? I mean, he is not a guy just trying to hit a home run all the time. He is a real bona fide using the field major league hitter. Mike Trout, we can all agree Mike Trout is all that in a bag of chips as a baseball player. He hit 333 last season. This year, back might have something to do with it. He's 270. When one of the greatest baseball players ever is 50 points below last year's batting average, it ain't just him.
Oh, it's baseball owns the ball company. They bought the company. So there, anybody who wants to sit there and espouse conspiracy theories, and before it was like, well, they'll have to look at the specs of the ball. Now they are the specs of the ball. They design the specs of the ball. I actually saw Rob Manfred doing an interview on this, Damon, and I couldn't believe how ridiculous Rob Manfred's answer to one of the questions was. He was talking about the ball and the different attributes and performances of the ball. And he said, you know what? The baseballs are handmade. So they're different. And you would think, what's coming next? When someone says something's it's handmade, it's different. The baseball's different ball to ball. That means it's handmade.
No, this is not artisanal baseball.
He says, this is what he actually said. He goes, the baseballs are handmade. So they're going to have different performances from year to year. That's what he said. Well, wait a second. If it's handmade, they should be different ball to ball, right? Because this ball is different than that ball. That's what handmade is all about. But no, instead, he said it's different year to year. So in other words, they look at their specs. They look at what they put their finger in the air. They take it. And what's the temperature of the fans? What's the temperature of, what's the appetite? What are people yearning for? Let's listen to our audience and let's design the ball to get the outcome that we want. But that's where it's at. So any kind of increase in offense or any kind of decrease in offense, it's all probably tied to the baseball itself. And baseball owns the company and they design their own baseballs. So there's no like, hey,
is this an overcorrection from the steroid era? Like instead of chicks dig the long ball, chicks dig, a team striking out somebody 18 times.
This ball, my point is just that this ball was handpicked. The performance of this ball, unless it's surprising them, maybe you're of the belief that they're surprised by their own product. I don't believe that. I believe that they picked this ball with these attributes for a reason. And I don't know how
what's
anybody.
The reason?
Yeah, well, maybe they felt like the home run was too cheap. Maybe they decided that this would decrease the number of home runs and somehow give us less of the three outcomes because you'll have less home runs and then maybe you'll have fewer strikeouts and more walks as teams adjust to the different baseball. Maybe that was their thinking. But you have a baseball that's clearly performing differently than the baseball that you had a year ago, and baseball owns the company.
Comcast Business Text Line says, I thought we didn't want bandboxes. You're complaining about not getting one of the three outcomes in Arizona. Look, Arizona, the reason why it's a pretty honest field, actually. None of the dimensions are offensive in terms of bandbox. It's the desert air. Like when you put a team at altitude, it's going to be easier to hit there. When you put a team in the desert, it's going to be easier to hit there. So stop trying to doctor the ball to make it similar to, how about this? There's a humidor at 24 Willie Mays Plaza. Why?
Right. That'll be my question too.
Why? It's at sea level.
Wasn't the humidor designed to add moisture to the drier climates? So in a sea level climate, wouldn't there be, in theory, now maybe if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but wouldn't there in theory be no need for the humidor? Why do you need it in San Francisco?
That's the point. I don't. Why is it here too?
Other than
because now they're saying, well, we need uniformity, but that's the thing. There's nothing uniform about this sport. The Giants
and the ball doesn't react in uniform ways in different climates.
Right. I mean, look. I mean, where you build your ballpark, where you allow Major League Baseball to happen, is just the decision that baseball made. We wanted to put a team in the Rocky Mountains, for goodness sakes. We wanted to put a team in the middle of the desert. That means you're going to get more action there than other places. And that's the deal that you make with the devil to put a franchise in that market. You want to be offended by a bandbox. Look at Yankee Stadium. I still don't know why they don't have power left-handed hitters at Yankee Stadium. That's all I would have.
It's the biggest stadium with the smallest dimensions you'll ever see.
It's ridiculous.
It's a huge stadium. It's massive, but the park plays tiny.
Well, they also got guys who make the park play tiny. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But
that's part of it, but that's not all of it, because the ball right field at Yankee is a short porch.
Look, we all know what happened at Crawford boxes. We've all seen the balls jump in Houston forever. They're not doing it this year. Not doing it. I mean, it's just not happening anywhere. You can't doctor. What's the difference between doctoring baseballs and then you're still inspecting pitchers' fingers? Like, what do you want?
By the way, those checks on the pitcher's fingers, I forget who it was. There was a Giant pitcher the other day who was really unhappy with how the game was going, and he walked by the guy. You would have swear they were slapping five. Like, I've never seen a faster check of the guy. The ump basically put his fingers right next to the guy's between his thumb and fingers, and I don't think the pitcher even broke stride. I think it was Logan Webb. He's just walking right out. He just kept walking. It's like, hey, you touched my hand. All right, there you go. So I don't even think they're even really checking with the same seriousness that they were checking initially.
5 minutes only. What'd you think of the British Open? Did you watch it?
I watched a little bit of it. I thought it was interesting that going back to 1990, the winner of the British Open has been in the top 3 after the first round every single time. And once again,
22
Cameron
years?
Smith. Yep.
That's not at just St. Andrews. That's the British Open across the board.
That's the British Open. I think it's across the board because I don't think it's been played that many times at St. Andrews. I think, though it has been played, it has.
Like once every 5 years it comes to St. Andrews.
Yeah, but I think it's British Open across the board. Anybody who's won has been top 3 since 1990. And Cam Smith was tied for 3rd at the end of the first round. Then had a big second round.
I mean, here's the thing. He came from 4 shots back. He put together a really impressive birdie streak on Sunday. Anyone who wants to tell you that Rory choked obviously wasn't watching. Rory played well.
Rory played incredibly well.
But playing well on a Sunday at a major is good enough to get you beat, which he did by the guy who played out of his mind. I mean, Joe Dirt wins the British Open. Cameron Smith from Australia.
Yeah.
And look, I got to tell you, Corey, Rory,
first major.
Rory, he really wanted it. The crowd really wanted it. The broadcasters really wanted Rory to walk up, for the big ovation on 18 on the 150th British Open at St. Andrews of all places. The broadcast wanted it more than anybody, maybe even more than Rory. If you can be classy in defeat, he certainly was. One more thing about golf. Did you see that Sergio Garcia says that he's quitting the European Tour because he's, quote, not feeling the love? All right, that's a lie. It's because he's not making the money. He's never been a grinder. Like Sergio Garcia
he's had the yips for like over a decade now, where he just keeps waggling and waggling and waggling and waggling. I mean, mentally, the sport has gotten to him.
He just doesn't even care about going out and hitting a bucket of balls since winning the 2017 Masters either. Like, to him, that was a zenith. I did what I came to do, and I'm just going to go easy street now. That guy ain't a grinder. He's a waggler. He is in the first wave of live golfers. And he's even said, like, look, I'm really interested in making more money for less golf. That's the way you're wired, you ain't going to win big tournaments. I want to make more in less work.
Yeah.
That's just that you ain't going to win. We're not going to win. I got bad news. I think David Faraday is a gift from the golf broadcasting gods. David Faraday's leaving NBC, is expected to join the Live Golf Tour as an analyst.
Really?
David Faraday.
Faldo just hung it up as well.
They're going to throw him off the peak. He had like a talk show on the Golf Channel.
Right.
They got to throw him off of that now, right? I mean, this is the fork in the road. There has never been a sport where we've seen actually get challenged by a competitor. This is not NFL, XFL, you stand no chance. This is the kind of money that is going to make every average golfer, it's going to kill the middle class, because the middle class can now become really well paid. Only the diehards are going to stick around the PGA Tour. This could really damage the PGA Tour.
Oh, there's no question. And it makes you wonder what the end game is other than greenbacks. I mean, other than dollars, is there some motivation? This will ultimately kill a lot of the popularity of golf. I mean, I think if you take out the tradition of golf, the tradition's a major selling point for watching the sport. By the way, did you see Tiger walking up 18 and the ovation that he got Friday?
Look,
We may never see that.
I told Ray, who has no emotions attached to anything ever, that actually got me a little bit. Like, I felt like, wow.
It got him.
As Tiger is crossing this, as he's making the walk to 18, this could be it. This could be it in terms of mattering in a major. Now golf is
or maybe even participating.
At St. Andrews.
At St. Andrews, yeah.
Because it's going to be a long time since it goes back there.
And he's won there a couple times, but I mean, he struggled at Southern Hills and had to withdraw from that. And I think
here's the thing, maybe
he's 80-1
because golf, nothing has a longer life cycle than a golfer, because that's just the nature of the sport. And maybe the further he gets away from this accident, but when it comes to contending in a major, you'll be lucky if you get that once or twice more ever. That's the way it felt.
Well,
and he also got off to a terrible start. And you get off on a bad start. Here's the thing.
I think he's never going to win anywhere except for Augusta, or maybe like a St. Andrews. You know what I mean? It's going to be someplace
Pebble
where he has Pebble. It's going to be someplace where he has undeniable course knowledge, and that kind of closes the distance, because he's not hitting the ball the same. He's not getting the same distance. Now the field is. I mean, how about the guy who won? Fitzpatrick, who won the U.S. Open. I mean, there are guys who are now figuring out, guys who weren't bombers, who are now figuring out the mechanics of their swing to a point where they are hitting it 30 yards further.
The difference between kind of wanting to win and really wanting to win is in full, I think, example right now. And we're going to come on back and tell you what that may or may not be. Damon and Ratto on 95.7 The Game. Larry Krueger slipping on in this week. If you haven't already, my gosh, subscribe to Damon and Ratto on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, which, as always, is the internet.
It's one of the most anticipated training camps in years.
Every single day, there has been some liquid hot magma opinion about Trey Lance. Every day, every single day, Trey Lance's offseason has now become the most talked about thing of all time in Bay Area history.
And we are broadcasting live from Santa Clara.
Are you ready for the Trey Lance hype machine? Because it's here. Pitchers or Gabe Kapler?
I'm done guessing with Kapler. I don't get it. I don't get it.
The best of the game, presented by the County of Santa Clara. Book a COVID-19 booster shot now at sccfreevax.org or call 211. Now back to Damon and Ratto, brought to you by BMW Fairfield on 95.7 The Game.
Wrapping up today's Damon and Ratto, Larry Krueger in today and this week for Ray, who's on vacation. And we're going to find out, Larry, by midnight. So you got 3 hours, because this is East Coast midnight, what the Boston Celtics are about to do with a $17.1 million traded player exception that unless they use it by midnight tonight, East Coast, it vanishes. I mean, all I can tell you, Warriors fans, when you hear something like that, I mean, Malcolm Brogdon was a good ad. Gallinari's a nice ad, but why not put the pedal down right now? You're 2 wins away from an NBA Finals. They are $20 million over the tax right now. They're looking at a luxury tax bill of $40 million. If they use this traded player, it would push it over 50. I mean, Joe Lacob's thinking that's chump change. Joe Lacob's spending $300 million in just luxury tax. So all I'm going to tell you is that make sure to thank Joe Lacob today if you're a Warriors fan. Like face Chase Center, drop your prayer rug, and whatever Lord you pray to, thank God that Joe Lacob bought your favorite team every day of your life.
You know, the one thing that I think is kind of a flaw of the cap in the NBA is, why should you, if you're drafting and developing these players, why shouldn't you get a benefit on the cap to retain your own players?
It's ridiculous.
Why would you want a mechanism within your structure that would drive teams to move their players and to kind of break that relationship that your local fans have with those players?
Right.
Why is that good?
the player that you traded for, the player that you added free agent wise, that's where you get luxury tax.
Absolutely.
You're drafted and developed.
Maybe even making a more severe tax.
I mean, that's the thing. You're looking at a situation where you're being punished for having good choices and success.
Right. And for handicapping correctly, something that's very difficult to handicap, and that's the NBA draft. It's more speculative in 2022 than it's ever been. You got young players, freshmen, international players. It's a speculative draft. If you're so good and you can handicap it, where's the reward?
By the way, we'll talk a little bit about who the Giants drafts picks because they made a couple of draft picks. I saw
All
the A's. The A's added a Hoosier in the 5th round, so we'll have to talk about. We'll have to get that guy on immediately. Go Hoosiers, go Kyle Schwarber. I don't know what's happened already. What do we got? Pete Alonso here in the home run derby. Let me just do a real quick though, because we can talk about baseball. What's wrong with it? What's right with it? What we do like? What we don't like? I love good memories. I love good baseball memories. This date in baseball history, July 18th, 1970, Willie Mays collected his 3,000th hit at Candlestick Park.
Mays hits it into left field. There goes number 3,000. Willie Mays hits his 3,000th base hit. Willie Mays has done it again. He has brought the baseball world to a standstill. With the league president, Charles Feeney, Hall of Famers Stan Musial and Carl Hubbell, and Monty Irvin, who helped Mays at the start of his baseball career, all cheering him on.
That's when you listen to the Giants on KSFO.
What would Willie Mays be worth today? I mean, if Juan Soto is getting offered $450 and turning it down, what would Mays be worth?
Just,
center field, not a corner outfield, best fielder, best hitter. I mean, best base runner. I mean, what could you pay him? You couldn't pay him enough.
No, infinity dollars. He'd be a $50 million a year player.
He'd own part of the team.
By the way, $50 million a year player is going to happen.
Oh, no question. It's going to
right around the corner.
Yeah.
So not only do you have that, by the way, the Giants won 10-1 that afternoon against the Montreal Expos. How about this? Gaylord Perry not only picked up his 14th win of the season that day, but he also went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored. Gaylord at the plate. Willie was 2 for 3 with a walk, a run, an RBI, and a strikeout. Now he would only have 293 hits left in his bat after that. He knew he was losing his powers. So the very next year, Willie Mays, for the first time in his career, decides to lead the National League in walks. It's the one and only time in his career that he did that. 2 years later, he gets traded to the Mets.
More sold to the Mets, who's Charlie Williams that came back, but it was Joan Payson, the old owner of the Mets. Horace Stoneham was in bad financial straits. He couldn't guarantee Mays' financial future. She could, and that's why that deal was consummated. Maybe the greatest comment of the Willie Mays hour that they so often play on NBC Sports Bay Area, it comes from Ray, who described, and Ray's a great wordsmith. He said, Willie Mays is the signature player of baseball's most talented era. And truer words have never been spoken. He's absolutely nailed it.
Also, on this day in baseball history, Joe DiMaggio went 0 for 3, ending his 56-game hitting streak. 81 years ago, July 17th, 1941, was the last time he got a hit in the streak. So today, July 18th, 1941, it didn't happen. That ended the 56-game hitting streak. The very next day, he went 2 for 4 to begin what would be a 16-game hitting streak. So DiMaggio hit safely in 72 of 73 games. How many times do you think Farhan would have benched Joe DiMaggio for the lineup? Just a matchup. 56-game hitting streak, about 30 games in, he'd be like, look,
It's a tough righty. Tough righty. It's time to sit. Joe DiMaggio had stats where he struck out 9 times in a season.
Yeah.
There's guys who strike out 9 times in a series.
Anyway,
9 times in a season.
9 times. That was a fun and easy show to do, man. Good to see you. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. We're going to have an awful lot more football coming up this week. There was a lot of baseball today. Today's the day to get romantic. We got All-Star Home Run Derby. We're going to have an All-Star game tomorrow. I'm going to be on Spaces a little bit later tonight. We're going to have to figure out who's producing that because it ain't going to be me. Somebody better call me or I'm going to go to bed. But we'll talk to you tomorrow. And let me just tell you, at 4:15, a mystery guest of circumstance. This isn't one of those candy ass. We're going to have a mystery guest at 4:15. Tomorrow at 4:15, a monster guest. So stick around for all that, Larry. It was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks very much to our guest today, Chris Russell, the Rooster. From Daisy Rooster sighting. And please do remember,